At least that's how I feel personally.
I feel a little bit better about it after being able to digest it, and maybe because I gave it a little bit of a breather because I was so worn out.
You have to adjust. So you have to adjust your expectations.
Well, I kind of dozed off a little, so I rewatched the episode 18 the next day, and so I don't know. I already sort of knew that things were real loose, but I thought, my expectations weren't set watching it a second time, so I could just sort of watch it and digest.
Listeners, we are Laura Palmer's Dad at Twin Peaks podcast. If you didn't intend to tune into that, that's where you are. And I'm here with the crew, Pat and Nate and Melissa, and we're talking about the finale, parts 17 and 18. We're going to start out with part 17, just getting some general feels of the day. You just heard kind of Nate's feelings on the whole thing. Melissa, where's your head at? It's been over 24 hours since Twin Peaks is over now.
It's true. And my expectations were too high, and I always know going into anything, if my expectations are too high, I'm gonna be fucking disappointed. And there was good things, there's little bits that I really enjoyed of how it ended, but then it was also a lot of, this isn't what I need to conclude, to wrap everything up for me. Unless you're going to make some kind of weird Fire Walk With Me sequel movie in like a month and a half. Because I can't, because things that, even when you listen to our bonus episodes about what to expect, you will also see that no one expected anything that happened.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. And so part 17 is, the description is the past dictates the future, and that speaks to all my feelings thus far, because in the past when Twin Peaks finished, not that I was around for like when it actually finished live, but like when I finished watching Twin Peaks, I had a lot of disappointment and a lot of like unresolved issues. But, going back weeks later and watching it as a whole, I was like, okay, this is good. This was telling a story. This was going somewhere. So I should have known from that past that David Lynch is not about giving us answers. He's about bringing in new questions. And I shouldn't have expected this kind of like neat and tidy ending. And so in that sense, I'm starting to soften to it. But at first, I have to admit, I was a little bit... I
think if they just had an Audrey scene, you wouldn't have.
It's not just about Audrey.
No,
but they wrapped up.
But what else? What else would?
I feel like they wrapped up like Ed and Norma. They gave that a little thing. They wrapped up Dougie. Yeah. Oh, that's done with. They wrapped up Evil Coop.
You don't get everything though. Is what he's saying. You don't get everything wrapped up.
No, but what about some of this other stuff where you went on these tangents? And why then? Why was I wasting my time with that?
I think another big wrap-up for me that I wanted was the tie to this big picture that I was seeing as people in the town are freaking out for no reason. There's this heightened sense of something's happening. Mm-hmm. So was that all just Laura Palmer? I mean, I think
it was the Jowday released into the world, and that's
so it could be. Definitely the lack of Audrey was a pretty devastating blow, but there were other things that just what was kind of frustrating is that I feel like you could have watched parts 1 and 2 and parts 17 and 18 and had a full story. It was almost like all the episodes in between didn't need to happen. It was all kind of this framing Laura Palmer story, which is fair, but we got invested in all these other plots in the meantime.
Right. And I feel like the Judy thing, where they start mentioning it probably the last 5 episodes, and then they just shove it down our throat this one, where it's like, this is what Judy is, and this is what it is. And then in 18, you'll see, like, oh, weird, this is Judy. And, like, I feel like it was forced on me a lot more than some of the other plot lines and the theories and all that other stuff.
Right.
That was building gradually throughout the series.
If you would have taken out all of the Judy stuff, it would have sort of been a satisfying conclusion. 17 would have, because
you're right.
The story arc kind of starts with Killer Bob, right? Even though you don't really know it, and that entity is defeated at the end.
Well, 18 is kind of denouement.
Well, I actually think, to go along with what you're saying, Nate, if you had ended all of Twin Peaks with the scene of Pete walking down past where Laura's body would have been, and it's not there, and he goes fishing, and that's the end, and the insinuation being that, like, so none of that ended up happening. Right. That would have been a really interesting way to make it all tie together and make sense, and then we wouldn't need to see Audrey, because we would know Audrey is putting on her shoes to get into the limo to go to school. Like, we wouldn't need to. So, I mean, that would be one. And I agree with what you said, Melissa, with Judy. We've got Dugpas and Bob and Tulpas and Doppelgangers, and, like, I know that it's cool to make a mythology, and that's really neat to give it layers, but sometimes it's more simple as an audience to have this is good and this is evil. The story of, like, evil Coop versus good Coop was a really easy to resonate with story, and then it's like Bob and different degrees of demons and understanding where they all fall in the demon hierarchy is just like that isn't what gives me joy in a story. I could understand, like, if you're really into complicated stories with, like, a deep mythos, like we've said, you know, when I watch the X-Files, it's not about black oil, and it's about Mulder and Scully and when will they kiss. So, like, that's just what I'm into in stories, and I get it.
And I'm the same way. So I prefer the relationship part more than anything where if I read, like, a fantasy novel or anything where it's this different world and then they go into a long explanation of everything, and, like, this is boring.
Right.
Just get to the relationships. Like, how are their friends doing?
Right. And I do like, you've mentioned, Nate, like, having a set of rules that you kind of follow. So, like, vampires are an easy example, or zombies. Like, are you the type of zombies who can run real fast, or are you the type of zombies who are just, like, sluggish, or are you the zombies who have to be killed in the brain? Like, we know the different rules of that zombie.
What's the rules of the ring, the rocks, and the pockets?
Right. Like, the rule with the ring. Yeah, there are rules.
The ring has some rules,
It does, yes.
And then you've got the seed, right, with the hair and...
Well, we don't know how the seeds are actually made, but they could be made by the giants, and then Bob, or, like, the one-armed man just has it.
I feel like the one-armed man's just, like, the main guy, like, the main MC of the Red Room, and, like, everything.
He did become that for the return, he did. But, if you wear the ring when you die, that sends you back to the Black Lodge.
Black Lodge, right.
Yeah, so that's that rule.
And I don't think that... I think there are rules, and I think David Lynch could write a book that would, like, adequately explain all these different degrees of demons and characters and what the dirt means and what's Jack Rabbit's palace versus the sycamore trees. What I always liked the most about Twin Peaks was, like, the element of mystery, you know, the slight element of, like, there's something strange in these woods and we just don't know what it is. So maybe it's almost, I feel like it's over-explained, if anything. And then I liked the idea of, like, that, you know, you throw in all these supernatural elements and all this drama, but at the end of the day, it's still about relationships and people. And so that's why the double R is so important. And, like, Shelley and Norma are important, and those characters, because it's about these, you know, people. And we lost some of that a little bit with all the stuff, just, like, so much mythology stuff that happens in 17 and 18. But some great stuff in 17, too, especially. Like, some really good stuff.
On the other hand, too, I suppose that there are people who are into Twin Peaks for the bizarre, surreal.
Oh, my God,
And if they had left... It's a hard balance to strike. I mean, this one definitely lended itself more towards that crew. And the same, like, cult following of Firewalk with Me, you know, very surreal.
Right.
Not extremely linear.
Surreal. Like, I love the scenes in the Black Lodge in the finale with Sycamore Tree, where there's, like, a singer and it's noir, and, like, little oddities, like the coffee pours too slow in 1 second, then it pours fast in another, and like things are slightly out of place. I think the element of CG added some like phoniness to me in some places, like things shriveling up and turning into things, and like when it was more the manufactured Hollywood look, maybe that to me was more the kind of surreal I like.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily great special effects, so I think he was purposely keeping it pretty basic.
That's what I thought a little as well.
Yeah, so let's just dive in with Buckhorn. So we're reeling from the experiences of Diane having just been shot or whooshed up into air, and Gordon saying that he couldn't do it, but somehow they're all drinking red wine, and Tammy is super happy.
She's trying to act really hard in the scene.
Oh god, she's the worst.
And then we get to learn about, what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we get the whole story from Cole, and
just word vomit.
But before that, Cole does have to let them know that his dick still works.
Oh yeah,
that's I feel like that's what she was trying to be like. I'm gonna be smirky. Tammy was trying to smirk, but it just came off like really uncomfortable, where she was like laughing at him.
Yeah,
he's like,
Wait, what did it?
Because Albert says
that,
you've gotten soft in your old age.
Oh, and then
like,
he
not
says,
where it counts.
Right.
Not where it counts, right?
And then Tammy tries to act.
Right, she kind of smiles like, so we all know how she got this job.
I mean, I guess what's weird to me from all three of them, from standpoint, is like whether Diane was a tulpa or not, you just spent days, weeks with a woman who looked and behaved exactly like your friend Diane, and she just disappeared, and now you're like making like penis jokes and drinking red wine. Like, it seemed a little tone deaf to me. Like, it was just weird how they didn't seem to care that much.
Right.
But yes, I agree. And then he explains the whole thing, very explainy, about him and Major Briggs and Cooper, before Major Briggs disappeared, discovered an extremely negative force or entity called Jaude, in ancient terms now Judy. And they put together a plan. We don't hear what the plan was, but Jack Reeves was in on it too, and he disappeared. So when Coop disappeared, naturally he said, if I disappear like the others do everything you can to find me. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone.
So do you think the two birds is Bob and Judy?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
At the same time?
Could be.
Because then trying to kill Bob, and then whoever Judy is.
It's also what the giant says.
Yeah.
Remember Richard and Linda, two birds with one stone.
Right.
So is that going into 18?
Which Richard, when he died, was on a giant stone.
This is true.
that is.
Where was Judy? Was she?
And who's Linda, though?
Well, Linda we find out later, but we're talking about 17 now, so no spoilers. Although I don't know.
No.
I guess probably.
Linda is Diane.
Linda is Diane.
We know.
But so the two birds could be. I mean, my instant thought was like both Cooper. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It could be.
Yeah.
It could be two Coopers.
Yeah, I'm trying to
maybe
kill.
that is evil Cooper and then Bob. Like, to kill those two birds,
exactly. That's probably the most.
Oh, that, okay, that makes sense.
And then in turn, by killing Bob, you kill.
Right. It is also interesting that he is explaining so clearly things that we probably don't need explained, and yet there's so much I need explained that he didn't explain to me.
No, that's what's so frustrating.
But they have a plan. Then Bushnell runs in, of course, and gives Truman the message from Cooper, which is, I'm headed for Sheriff Truman's. I'm sorry, gives Cole the message from Cooper for Truman. I'm headed for Sheriff Truman's. It's 2:53 in Las Vegas, and that adds up to a 10.
Which is completion.
Right, the number of completion. So that means, cool, Gordon knows the real Cooper is on the way. I do think it's really funny how then Tammy and Albert are just recapping Dougie hijinks.
Oh yeah, it's your favorite scene where Tammy types once and then
suddenly
pulls
she
up
has
all of Dougie's records.
Right, all of his medical records.
Yeah, it was,
all of his police records.
Right.
Literally, it was just like type. Like
Yeah.
the guy wasn't even like, I'm going to send you all the files we have on this Dougie Jones. It was just like, no.
And I guess
here
that's
it
what,
is.
like, it were the documents, like, that behind them on the screen. I mean, it looked like an old solitaire game where they're just...
Right.
But I think they were downloading the documents.
Yeah, it was just a giant database
right.
of all the files of everyone.
It almost
in the
could have been a
US
bit because
who knows?
they weren't really touching keypads. They were just turning back and being like, and he was in a coma.
It could be a bit.
And he works at Lucky 7.
That's right.
Yeah,
Like,
A bit harkening back to the old, like, soap opera,
right.
procedural drama.
Notice too how in like those types of things, when people get a phone call, you repeat everything the person is saying to you. Like, "What's that, Melissa? You've lost your phone." And you, you know, like it's just like you like repeat. This next sequence is quite Lynchy and I think quite delightful the way it all plays out. We're kind of going back and forth between the sheriff's department, prison, which has Chad. We don't know, Billy. It's easier to call him Billy at this point. I'm committed to it.
Quoted as drunk guy.
Yeah,
I think, in the
he is drunk guy.
Drunk guy, Billy, NATO, Freddie, and James. And then it will cut to electric wires, and Evil Coop is driving, and he's coming. And then back to NATO freaking out, and then back to NATO's getting everyone freaked out. And then they get to the Great Northern.
just randomly.
Yeah, which is always like a breath of fresh air, because the like... They shoot it in almost like a sepia tone or something where the Great Northern shots look different than the other shots. But Ben gets a call about his brother, and his first question is, has he been charged with anything? I do like appreciate that like Ben and Jerry, not so far from where they were.
So they close out Ben and Jerry's story.
And
sort
that's
of.
it.
Right,
Yeah,
that's it.
it.
He was
that's
naked in Wyoming. So that means that
His
Evil
binoculars.
Coop...
We'll get him. Yeah.
So does that mean, though, that Evil Coop and Richard were in Wyoming?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or it's on that border area where it's just like super close.
It could be on the border. Is Washington bordering Wyoming?
Yeah, but it's Jackson Hole, which I think is more into Wyoming, though.
Yeah.
No.
I had a friend that went there.
Did we say that Jerry was naked when they found him?
I think they did. Yeah, I think they
bring
did.
some
Yeah.
clothes.
He's completely
He's
naked.
completely naked.
Yeah,
and
that's
just
right.
like another day, another dollar. You get the feeling if you flash forward 25 years from now with Ben, it'd be the same situation. By the way, I want to see a family feud game of the Palmers versus the Horns, because it's you're hard pressed to determine whose life sucks more right now. Time was the Palmers absolutely had it one hands down, but I would say the Horns are giving them a run for their money this season.
Yeah, because at least with the Palmers, everything ended kind of quickly, except for Sarah.
Right.
Sarah's the only one, but for the Horns, it's being drawn out
Just
like
bad.
mental illness.
Well, you don't know now with Audrey.
We don't
might.
know. She could be the queen of the world.
She has a blank slate. Like we could
She's
give her
a
any
blank
story. We could give her any story now that we
that's
want.
true.
Yeah,
Just recently.
it's so true.
She woke up now.
She snapped out
She's
of it.
woke.
Snapped out of it.
She's totally woke. So now we get Evil Cooper, and it seemed to me that he abandons his truck by the road, and I think where he ends up is Jack Rabbit's palace.
I do too.
Yep, he was at Jack Rabbit's palace
Good
scene.
old Jack Rabbit's palace.
Because the Jackrabbit's palace goes into the Giant's Den.
Right.
Versus just the Red Room that's
Right.
So
on
the Giant's
That's
Den.
why it's only one sycamore as opposed to like 16 sycamores in the
Yeah.
I was
circle.
wondering about that.
Because the Giant's Den is like a studio apartment, whereas the Black Lodge is like a 2-bedroom. Yeah.
And he kind of transitions into the Giant's Den, and then they send him to the sheriff's department.
Right,
which is
ballsy of Evil Coop to even use portals when he knows he could at any moment get sucked back into the Black Lodge.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not quite. I
if
understand.
I were him, I would not want to even do that.
But, yeah. Because they kept him in a cage.
Yeah, they put him in that cage, was my thing.
Here's floating Major Briggs' head, the screen of showing what's going on, and then there was a little cage with Evil Coop.
Yeah, it was
and
a
it turns
cage.
into a little
It's
black
very like
ball.
Salvador Dali painting, and like there's
That's
only
a very
one
good
gold
analogy.
thing in it, and it's that
Horn?
like
The horn?
I always think it's the record arm, but maybe it's a horn.
It could be a
Yeah.
record arm too.
It feels very horny,
So-
because it pops out stuff.
What's weird though is we know the giant's a force for good, but like when he gestures on that screen, he makes the scene change, and he's kind of seems like what propels Evil Cooper to Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department.
Well,
He lives by a set of rules too, so there's some sort of rules.
Kind of like how Hannibal Lecter will only help people who aren't rude.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the rule is or whatever, but there was something where like if he went in there, he was going to be sent to Diane's true location or something like that.
So Diane's the pull, maybe.
That's what I'm thinking, because she came from Jack Rabbit's palace.
Right.
So he's
that
going
could be,
there.
Yeah. And that's
Is that his
heart.
That's
his
his motivation.
Well, Evil Coop, not necessarily. So then that's the other thing that
Well, what is his
confuses me.
motivation?
Yeah, what is Evil Coop's motivation?
I think he's out for Diane, though. That's my guess. He wants to, because NATO or Diane is very important, as Andy says, so he's trying to get to her.
But he also wants
maybe kill
Dale
her.
Coop to be dead.
Right.
Wouldn't that be two birds with one stone right there?
Dale and Diane.
Right?
Because I think I always interpreted it as he wanted Dale dead because then he could live, because only one can exist outside.
That's true. Yeah.
The thing. So I think his ultimate goal was either to avoid Coop or to kill Coop, to make sure that someone was going to live, and like this was going to be the final. Because even when he gets sucked back into the place outside, he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is what we're doing."
This is right, exactly.
I think Dale has to be the primary motivator, but I think Diane shortly thereafter, because I do think David Lynch is really into classic noir tropes, and Diane is the classic Gal Friday, like loyal to a T assistant. Like even in that scene when you see like Gordon and her follow, it's like the chief and the Gal Friday are the two supporters of the Private Dick in all noir books, so she has that role to play.
Also, why does Evil Coop not try and contact like Hutch and Chantel? Or maybe he does and we just don't know. But like,
it seems like much like in Game of Thrones, once people decide to cross the narrow sea, they like move real quick. Like things just
I guess we don't.
Well, I
maybe
think Evil Coop already sent them to stake out Dougie's house, and so their goal was, he assumed that Dougie was Coop.
Still there.
Yeah, and so they were still there until she told them otherwise. But
So,
then they died, and so he doesn't know that necessarily.
Right. So, yeah, I guess he just didn't. think that Coop was anywhere near. The real Coop wasn't anywhere near, so he didn't even think to contact them, I guess.
Either way, he has multiple reasons to get there. But I do think, interesting, Nate, you brought up with Freddy, like why even manufacture, which I hadn't thought of, like why manufacture this character Freddy when you could give this role to James? And like now I'm kind of questioning that myself. I like Freddy a lot, and I like how he keeps being like, I think she's trying to say something to NATO. But I wonder why James has to be there then. What purpose does James serve in any of this?
He just got lucky, I think.
Yeah.
It was, one thing that I thought, though, when you get later on into the episode, when you do the flashback with Laura and James, that was a pretty, prevalent scene to put in that episode. Maybe that was part of the parallel back to James.
Good point.
Trying to make sure, because they knew they were going to do that, they had to remind the audience that James was important.
Yeah.
But then what's funny is, couldn't they have found a way to have James come into the sheriff's department and see the picture of Laura and have a reaction? Because
Bobby
gets the reaction, which tells us, oh, Bobby had a relationship with her, not the other way around. But yeah, I and those scenes are from Fire Walk with Me, right? The bangs tell me they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So love the way that Andy reacts to Evil Cooper in the parking lot. Just, I always say, like, a good friend is the type of friend who, 5 years could pass and you see each other and it's like no time passed at all. Well, Andy is that friend.
Does Andy figure it out too that it's
not quite. It's quite? Lucy, which I love.
Yeah.
He senses something, but so the way this all shakes out,
he grabs Lucy to come over, and that's what the vision was that he saw.
Yeah,
maybe?
he sees the vision, but Lucy has the big save. I want to just say, like, she has the big intuition, big save.
Because once Andy and Evil Coop go into it, so, like, Andy's just like, it's you, come on in, we'll put some coffee on, we'll have some donuts. And as soon as he walks him in, he's like, Lucy, look who it is. And then, like, he stops and he has kind of the flashback of what he had with the giant, where it was, like, taking Lucy. And then, like, running around. And then he's like, because then he goes away, but then when he comes back, he just yells at Lucy, very important, very important, very important.
And before that, there's a couple details that are really, like, sweet and perfect. So he was like, everyone's gonna be so happy to see you. We'll make a fresh pot of coffee. First reference to coffee, like, everyone knows Cooper loves coffee. Then I love how when he sees Lucy says, we were just talking about you. It's such, like, Andy and Lucy are the most believable long-term couple, because how many times do we do that? Like, you'll see someone and then they see one of us and we say something and then the other one of us says, like, the same. And we're in Truman's office. Like, a lot of other stuff is happening.
Yeah. Right. Like, the two parallel scenes is all this stuff with, like, Evil Coop and then Chad breaking out of the jail where he has a key in his shoe, which has to be, like, a master key, because it not only opens the jail cell, it opens the door out of the jail, and it opens his locker.
Yeah.
So he could get a gun. So
I do like how
I didn't notice that. I knew he opened his locker, but that it opened every single lock. That is a good detail that you can notice there.
I do think that these two scenes finally give us a purpose for Truman, Frank Truman. But what it gives us is that Truman, we finally get to see where he does some real detective work, because he's, like, sussing out Dale the whole time, like, does not buy it. Like, he's leering at him the whole time, just like, I don't buy you 1 minute. And he offers him some coffee, and Evil Coop says, no thanks. Which away.
No thank you, I'm good. No thank you, I'm good, or something like that.
Yeah. I'm alright. And Andy runs out so excited to tell Hawk that Cooper's here.
Oh, that's who he tells.
But it gives us some good. And Melissa, you mentioned, like, it's really cool how Truman is sitting in his office and just sits throughout the whole scene. It's so baller. He's just like, I'm just going to sit while all this stuff is happening. So we get this really fast sequence where NATO's freaking out and Truman and Cooper are having this conversation alone now, where it's like, Agent Cooper
what's going on?
In the flesh.
How are you?
In classic awkward small talk, I love Truman going to Evil Cooper. What brings you to Twin Peaks? Like, he's about to, like, just offer, I hear the food's real good.
Right. I have some recommendations for the fall colors.
Yeah. Ooh, good callback. Empty West. And then Cooper goes, unfinished business, with a little smirk, like, okay, we get it. It's like sometimes, not to get political, but sometimes when Trump is giving a speech, I'm like, you look like Lex Luthor when you do that. Like, you're, like, literally, like, cawing and, like, twisting your fingers like you're going to tie women to train tracks. Like, I want to start a PR firm for villains that's like, how to not seem so villainous.
I think because we've seen this episode a couple times now, too, but the first time I saw this, I thought from the moment he arrived at the police station all the way up to that scene, I was it was very, very
Scary.
suspenseful, and
right.
it was very nerve-wracking.
We're waiting for.
Right.
Like, we're waiting for. Will Coop get there in time? The real Coop, will he be there?
Right.
Like, will Gordon find out? Will he be there in time?
So
like,
you're just waiting to see, like,
right.
Yeah,
you know he's no good,
anticipation.
right? Who's he gonna kill? I mean, who's gonna like set it off?
Well, I guess I always thought that the series would be evil Coop versus good Coop, which
Right.
is what this scene is. So then it's like when they go past this scene, it's kind of almost unnecessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. And seeing all of our sweet, innocent Twin Peaksers like Andy and Lucy and Hawk, who are just so like open to whoever, you're like, oh, Andy's gonna get killed. There's so many times in this scene where I think Andy's gonna get killed.
I know. But what's the best thing, and I'm just going to go there, is that Lucy is just really on her fucking game. And she,
Lucy conceivably saves the day in the world.
And that's the best part of all of this, is that Lucy comes out like the big hero, where like
yes.
Lucy gets a call
Yeah.
and she's like, who is this? What?
Right. Ugh. Remember when Lucy should have won Miss Twin Peaks and we were like, whoa, turns out Lucy can do the splits and like she can do this and she like never be surprised by Lucy, but she's always surprising. That's what's so great about her. You should never be surprised, but I always
She's
am.
got skills. And she
She's
figured out cellular phones.
She figured out cellular phones.
There you go.
And she killed a guy, adding to the ranks of yet another member of the sheriff's department who killed a guy.
She killed evil Coop.
Congratulations, Bobby and Lucy.
Or she killed Doppelcoop.
Yeah.
And then Freddy killed Bob.
Because Truman, for all his, insight, was still futzing around and
And then they did the weird comedic, like old school thing where the bullet hits his hat, but then do you see that? How the hat flies off of Sheriff Truman?
did not.
I did notice that.
Yeah,
that was weird. Why? What caused that?
I don't know. Because Coop pulled out a gun too and was gonna shoot Truman.
Yeah, we thought Truman was going to be dead.
Yeah, and then instead it hit his hat and did a weird hat thing where it was like very.
It did. So he did shoot.
Yes, I think
They were
that's what
both
it
I
was.
thought
Like,
he
they
just. Yeah, I thought he
pulled
just
at the
didn't
same
shoot. But,
time,
yeah.
but then I thought
And then,
Lucy got the
like,
drop on him.
Yeah.
the gunshots went off and like his hat went funny.
Yeah,
and
like
then,
it flipped up like that. I
Right.
thought for sure he
Yeah.
was shot in the head when his hat
Yeah.
flipped up like that. So
No, I think it was just like.
I mean, it just goes to show you can wear a pink cardigan sweater and still be a badass. Lucy.
of all the things, though, that was definitely the last thing I was expecting from
Right.
the wait for that. I mean, and clearly then we take the step into the next realm here, but
Yes. And then Lucy just, the whole rest of the scene, Kimmy Robertson, you're just pure gold. And you're definitely in my top 5 people I'd want to get a drink with, because in the rest of this whole madness that ensues, Andy is just holding her, but he's too tall to be in frame, so we just see his chest.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just her making the same expression literally for about 25 minutes. And I just think it's pure gold. And I love it. I love it.
And she
perfect.
understands cellular phones.
She knows.
now.
You know what? I'm starting to feel better about this already, just knowing that Lucy got a happy end.
Right.
Not only are she and Andy the greatest couple in the world, but she understands cellular phones. So she's gonna be like sexty texting Andy.
They have the
She's
greatest
gonna
kid
figure
in the
it out.
world.
Oh my God, their
Right.
kid's
They're
wonderful.
gonna get a study.
They're going to get a red chair.
Guys, I feel
From
so much
earlier.
better now.
There you go.
I wasn't thinking about the Brennans, but it's as long as the Brennans are happy, then I'm happy. So yeah, but so
Yeah.
Hawk, yeah, where
Now
the
the
fuck was
twisting.
Hawk?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Seriously, because
Comes
then
in-
Hawk runs in after it, and it's like, Hawk, you've been on this case for now. Like, where have you been? Like, what are you doing?
Hawk
feel
comes
like-
in after, and Bobby comes in after, too, right?
Bobby comes
Right.
in way after.
Yeah, Bobby's the
Bobby's
last one.
I
Yeah.
thought, Bobby, you were supposed to be
know.
the key to everything.
No.
Well, I think he served his purpose by
Yeah,
getting
he's
them
the map boy.
to Jack Rabbit's palace.
Oh, and we
and
forgot to
getting
say
them.
that Lucy got a call from Dale Cooper too, who also helped because he said put a pot of coffee on, which was like,
Yeah.
just like, wait a minute,
Coffee?
evil Coop wants no coffee, good Coop. But
Yeah,
and then
that's where she figured it out.
Yeah.
then-
And that's why, because when she transfers the call, she's like, Sheriff
This is
Truman,
important. This is important. This
Very
is
important.
Yeah.
Very important. Pick up the line.
Yeah, I do love, too, how she will always explain to them how to answer the phone. It's the second one with the flashing light.
She did that again. She did that
one
last time.
Always does it. She's consistent to a vault. So now we've got just everyone. Like, if this was a play, I feel like it's an Agatha Christie play where all the characters are running in from different spots and there's like a tableau of everyone in different poses, which I love shit like that. And then we get into the forest with steam and all sorts of shit. Who knows? But finally we get enter Dale Coop and he sees Evil Coop. Oh wait, I skipped a lot of stuff.
No,
sorry,
you did. Because Coop's talking to Truman.
I'm gonna let you moderate.
All right. Coop's talking to Truman. Truman says, "Oh, but you're right here. But Lucy just shot you. Don't touch the body. Don't touch the body.
Yeah,
I'm on my way." So then Andy brings up Nato, James, and Freddie from the basement from the cell.
Yeah, he's just like, gotta bring them all upstairs.
Oh, thank you. And then, so then we see the woodsman attacking Evil Coop to try and, like, I don't know, spread all the blood around.
Well, I guess it's to get Bob because
they're getting Bob out.
Yeah.
Oh.
But,
so I
they
think
just wipe it all over his face, and I just don't understand that.
So I think what happened then back in 8 is that Doppelcoop wasn't killed, so they couldn't get Bob out of his stomach. But this time it was a kill shot, and that's why they were able to get the egg of Bob out.
Gosh, if I had a nickel for all the times we tried to get Bob out of my stomach,
Bob
I just couldn't do it.
And also, I think when you see Bob attacking people, he like bites their face, kind of like the otherworldly being in episode 1 in the first episode.
Oh, right.
So
which is Judy, I think.
Which seems to be Judy.
I thought it was Judy.
It looks like Judy. Judy.
Be like Dumb and Judy. That is quoting a Talking Heads song, and he can't stop. Yeah.
It's a great name.
Anyway, where were we? Bob, Nato.
Cooper's dead. Woodsmen are searching for Bob.
Yeah, you are right that they do seem to be searching in all the wrong places.
It's just they just spread. They just like then massage his face a little bit, put some blood up.
It seemed very like art project.
It did, yeah. It looked really comfortable. Like
yeah, it was just a blood facial. I think those are
just squeezing. I don't know. Yeah. Also, favorite moment of like James, shut up, was that they all come up and of course James sees the one damsel in distress, which is Nato, and puts his arm around her protectively.
Right.
Like, James is literally turned on by victims.
Classic
like, no
James.
one is. I mean, that's so James.
Classic James.
It is. It's so James, and I hate him for it. Honestly, one thing that I'm really sad that we don't resolve is Bang Bang Bar Theory. Like that.
Well, I don't know. I think upon rewatch we can figure it out. Though.
I mean,
so yeah, we'll have to get into this in a minute.
You're gonna have to draw it all out.
That's our rewatch.
I've got like Carrie.
We're gonna figure out, I think, a lot more stuff.
Like, 9 Inch Nails spelled backwards is 9 divided by 3. I've gotten good. You know what? This was all a ruse to get me to be better at math. And I want to thank you, David Lynch, because I really have improved. If I'm like, if you take 7 Dugpas and divide them, like, once I put it in number theory, it's all good. So we have all major players are together, including the Mitchums even run in.
I know.
And I just put Bubble comes out of his stomach with Bob. We got there.
But it's like a bigger, fatter bubble than we've ever seen.
Fatter bubble. And of course, Dale Cooper knows about Freddie. So he's like, Freddie, this is your moment, bud.
Yeah.
So Freddie...
Your purpose.
He goes, are you Freddie? He goes, yes, and this is my destiny. So then it's...
And then it turns into what I think would be the Twin Peaks video game. Because it's like... And, like, it's, like, Freddie punching a bubblehead Bob with his, like, glove. And, like, I can just see, like the different, like, little cues being like, +2, mega punch. Get him, Freddy!
The old arcade style video games,
And then he punches him into the ground.
And
then
it turns into fire.
Right. Final battle.
It totally writes itself. Twin Peaks Nintendo.
Did Bob say before that he said, "I'll catch you with my death bag"?
Yes. This comes from a poem. It's called Fire Walk With Me, which has, I'll catch you with my death bag. They may think I've gone insane, but I will kill again, or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty close, yeah.
But it's the Fire Walk With Me poem, which is multiple times cited here. So it is consistent.
Good point, though. That could be his death bag, yeah. That's
So his death bag is his bubble lava pack over his head.
His placenta.
I don't know, his egg.
Placenta egg death bag. Point, Bob. You're going to need to power up with your Glove of Fury. It does turn into a Nintendo game for just a minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, this is the one thing that I don't know if I've loved about the whole
I just don't like that it's a garden glove. It really kind of upsets me. I don't know why.
I'm always
Maybe
torn.
I've just watched too much.
A leather glove would have been okay.
Yeah, I mean that would have been sexier than this green glowing glove.
Yeah. See, on the one hand, I love when Frodo saves the world versus Aragorn. You know what I mean? I love when it's the everyman versus the hero. Right. But Freddy wasn't even the Frodo. If anything, Diane was the Frodo, because Diane was us. All through series 1 and 2, we listened as Diane. Diane's the every woman. She doesn't have magical powers necessarily. So either the hero, Cooper, should fight the villain, or Diane should have. But having Freddy is just I
suppose we would have to wait another 20 years for season 4.
Explanation.
The Return of the Return.
Oh my god, yeah.
Maybe there's a reason we're not seeing right now, though.
I know. I
an
believe,
explanation,
I believe in you, David Lynch. I'm still believing in you, even though I spent the last 24 hours just kind of crying in my pillow. But anyway.
Because then he defeats Bob, Bob breaks, and then disintegrates up into the air.
Yes. There is a really sweet line that I think actually probably explains this whole series where...
Is it, "You did it, Freddy"?
No, but that's also great. I love that. You did it, Freddy.
Good job, Freddy.
Cooper's always so kind and caring to everyone. But he says, the whole gang is there. They're all in that tableau. And Cooper says, "No, there are some things that haven't changed." And he looks at Hawk. And I'm oh, that's sweet. And that's the Steadfast fans who want the cherry pie and the double R and the soap opera. And then he says the past dictates the future, which is when NATO comes and touches his face, and it reveals that NATO is Diane, which gotcha part 3. Although that one, I think by the time I was getting it, everyone was kind of getting it,
right?
But
because she had that vision saying that she was in the cells.
Yeah. All right. Well, but I was the first one at this table to say it, so I'm going to do it.
You win the table.
Gotcha. So Diane is back, and her hair is pink.
Red.
Or red.
Red, pink. I don't like to say red because that makes her ginger. I don't know.
It was.
But it's
It was very pinkish red.
Because she also had red eyebrows. They really went all out. Because somehow she went from an Asian woman without eyes to Diane with a red wig, but
and black and white fingernails.
Yeah, black and white.
Which she always had the different color nails.
Set of makeup.
It's true, she did.
Here's my question, and I'm just curious as to why this choice was made. Why couldn't Laura Dern have played NATO, and they just had her eyes covered over and a wig and stuff? Why? Because that was not Laura Dern,
right? No,
right.
And
that was a choice, and I don't think I understand why they made that choice.
I think that you couldn't get it to her makeup couldn't have been severe enough to make you not think it wasn't Laura Dern.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think
That was the thing.
I mean,
Like-
they would have had to put a lot more clay, you
Yeah.
know, because she's pretty beakish.
And then, like, she's very, like, long-faced, too.
Right.
So, like, by putting her just a
Yeah.
different
That'd be a lot
actor,
to clock on right there.
Well, that's why I was thinking, like, could they have just disguised Laura Dern enough? But I guess not. I do like the choice that, like, yeah, Diane, and it speaks to the power of Diane, that in order to defeat Cooper, you had to, like, disable Diane. Like, you had to make her blind and hide her, otherwise she would save him. Because we know Diane has all the information he has. We know women are stronger than their male counterparts.
She was. You're right. She was, not only was she put into the other world or Black Lodge, she was
blinded.
She was blinded and disguised by Dark Coop, probably, right? So
there's definitely an Orpheus Eurydice thing going on in both these episodes too, of like leading out of hell, where first it's NATO leading Cooper out of hell, and she's able to do it because she's blind. So in Orpheus and Eurydice, Orpheus is like can lead his wife out of hell, but only if he like doesn't look back to make sure she's there.
So very good.
when Cooper and Diane or NATO are going out of the portal, NATO is blind, so she can't check for him, so she's able to get him out. But then later with Laura, he looks back and looks at Laura, so then she disappears. So I was like, oh, Orpheus and Eurydice. Yeah. Totally that. You're so smart, David Lynch. But anyway, but it's sweet to have them kiss, and everyone's looking on. It's kind of like the happy ending before you squish the happy ending into a million pieces. Right. Interesting line, though. Dale Cooper says, do you remember everything, in this sweet way? And she says, yes, in this bittersweet way. So I wonder, does Dale Cooper know about Evil Cooper raping?
Probably not.
I don't know.
I would think that maybe he does, though. Yeah. Maybe he knows what Evil Cooper's been doing, too. Because if Evil Coop knows everything about Good Coop, wouldn't the same be?
But he was a copy of Good Coop.
I don't know.
Well, it's not the other way around.
Yeah. I like to think that Dale Cooper doesn't know, because then that also would speak to why he just leaves Audrey in hell and doesn't help her.
I don't think he knows.
Yeah, he doesn't know. And he says, we live inside a dream.
And the time is 250. Keeps going back from 252 to 253.
Yeah, I do love how he says, "I hope to see all of you again, every one of you." And it's like the Mitchums and Lucy and Andy and the Pink Ladies and like everyone's in the room. And then I feel like it's also to the fans, like whatever format it is, whether it's Twin Peaks or like conventions or just talking about Twin Peaks. Like, I hope to see you again. We saw a very sweet tweet from Kyle MacLachlan on Sunday saying, what did he say?
It's like, is anyone else getting teary-eyed or something like that?
Totally.
And like they were all together to watch the finale together. Because
wish
I follow
I'd been
all
there.
of the actors on their Twitter account.
Well,
that would have been interesting.
And like my thing too with what he said about the past dictates the future, and then I hope to see all of you again, everyone. So it almost makes me think that either he's going somewhere where he doesn't think he can return, or he's going into the past, and that changing the past would alter the future, meaning maybe he will never meet those people.
Right. Either one. It could, either one or both.
And then
it seems like both almost.
The past too, because as we get into more of this, we kind of see him head into the past and alter it in a way.
Right. And this does tell us, you know, what Laura Palmer's death means for this town and what it would mean for this town if this death didn't happen. And we start to explore that in a way where it almost feels like we needed to explore it more. So it's a great line, and very sad the way it's shot, the whole tableau. It's like very lovely. I thought that whole sequence was really good. It was a great payoff to finally see
everyone in one place.
Everyone in one place. Yeah. But then we get Gordon, Cooper, and Diane are the only ones to go down to the Great Northern, to the secret room to find.
Oh yeah, they have to go all the way to the Great Northern.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just in case there was any chance that Gordon wouldn't be included in his scene. Right before Cooper's like leaving, it's like Gordon, Coop, and they're like together. Like definitely Gordon and Cooper are lovers. They go to a secret room and he asks Gordon and Diane not to follow him.
Right.
Which makes sense. It's that Harry Potter like Hermione and Ron never follow.
Yeah, I made a total Harry Potter connection there. When he flashes back, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, but it's true. But what does throw me... Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Was it going forward now, or was it when we were dealing with all of the Diane thing? It's good to note that Cooper's face is Laura Palmered onto the back.
You're
it's
right.
Like grayscaled onto like the back of the whole scene.
What is the meaning of that?
I don't know.
I don't know what that is supposed to mean. It's
got
to mean something for somebody who...
It's true.
Could be that's a dream.
This is how much I trust Melissa. As I was taking notes this whole time, I'm thinking, I should write the Cooper's face is in the background, and then I'm like, Melissa will remember. It was one of those things I just knew you would remember.
Well, that's like I was writing down like in the next scene we'll talk about, and I was like, but this is from Fire Walk with Me, right, Kelly? You got this.
We know what each other got, sis. Yeah.
Because
I don't know. Then because it makes it very surreal, and it did make me start to think if this theme is like we are all in the dream, but who's the dreamer?
Yeah.
Is Cooper the dreamer?
Cooper the dreamer, yeah.
And then this is all just a dream of Coop while he's in the Black Lodge and just can't get out.
So I have a theory too, though, that I think Laura may be the dreamer, and part of that is because we were trying to figure out why is Laura sort of the center of everything.
Right.
Is she the dreamer? And because her parents are both symbolized as evil characters,
right?
Yeah,
I don't know. I get the Coop dreaming theory too.
It could be Laura.
This episode started making me think Laura a little bit too.
Whenever Laura and Coop interact, it is like crazy chemistry. Like they just seem to be like these two forces. It's like Luke and Leia. Like it's like these two that are they're the last Jedi.
What's her name from The Matrix say? What was her thing about the dreamer being stuck in the dream, more or less? And so it started making me think maybe...
And that is big in Twin Peaks. I mean, in Twin Peaks and Lynch. I mean, Lynch...
Dreams are huge.
Loves to the point where, like, when I have a really prophetic dream or a dream that shakes me, like that one I had about you that I texted you about, like, that I can still call in vivid detail to my mind. Like, I'll write them down, or I'll think about it forever, and it will really, really fuck with me. Like, so a lot of David Lynch movies have to do with the characters, like, I had this crazy dream, and then it comes true. Like, that's, like, a very classic Lynch trope. Mm-hmm. And then I think what he's saying is that these dreams are, like, these... infinite realities that we inhabit with time and space, which that's Star Trek too. Like
that lends itself to my other
realities,
theory.
Infinite diversity.
And then there's
I'll keep that
also
for the end.
There's also
it's a good segue into our new podcast.
Back to Audrey though. Audrey, it was like earlier. Dreams sometimes harken a truth. Mm-hmm. So
it's true. It's just hard, and I get that. Like when you have a cast of characters that's really broad. You can't bring every character a happy ending, but no surprise, I'm admitting things that everybody knows. I, for whatever reason, relate the most to Audrey. Yeah. And when her history was cut down so short, it like made me hearken to things in my history that made it get cut down short. And like it made me feel like, why didn't she have this? She had all the potential but didn't get to live the potential. Whereas these other characters, Donna's probably like a veterinarian in Spokane or something. Like it's just like
sending her meth head sister money every couple
I know.
months.
It's just like, why do some people have so much promise and so little fulfillment?
She didn't get nothing though. Donna didn't get nothing.
Not in Twin
Annie
Peaks,
didn't get nothing.
Getting out of Twin Peaks is the goal.
Well, we don't know. That's
anyway,
the thing.
So we got so much more to cover. Jeffries, the one-armed man. Oh, okay. So I do want to say, so before Cooper leaves Gordon and Diane, he says, "See you at the curtain call." Do you guys non-theater people know what a curtain call is?
Is that when everybody comes out and bows?
Yes.
Right.
Well, what's interesting about a curtain call is, like, even in a show where everybody died and, like West Side Story, you know, like, everybody just got shot, and then we all come out and the Jets and Sharks are holding hands and everybody's
he
bowing
means see
together.
you in death, then.
I think it's death.
Yeah.
Like, curtain call is after the action. It's where everybody's together and acknowledging, and you have this sense of, like, we're in the curtain call, we love each other, you know, like, there's an acknowledgement of the audience. I think that was a purposeful death reference. Like, I'll never see you again until death. That's kind of how I took that to mean. That's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, curtain calls curtain calls are weird.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
We get the Fire Walk With Me poem. Okay, and I want to talk one thing about the Fire Walk With Me poem. So a lot has been said about this one line about the Fire Walk With Me poem, which is, "One chance out between two worlds, fire walk with me." And purposefully, there's no, like, is it chance, like CHANCE, like a game of chance, or chance, CHANTS, like chance, a chant. Mm-hmm. And in the Fire Stick translation, it says chance, like CHANTS. Yes. But I feel like if you take this to mean one chance out between two worlds, it makes so much more sense.
That's what I thought it was.
I think
like
it's
one
ambiguous.
way to get out.
I think it's both. I think it was
and that's
meant to be
why
both.
it's supposed to be both.
Yeah.
But
because we just get the one-armed man's face chanting that.
I wonder if I could just remember the whole poem. Probably not.
Through the darkness, the future's past.
The magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire walk with me.
Yeah. I didn't write it down. I didn't write it down there.
And then there's the other.
I don't know if that
was
completely right.
Yeah.
That's
But that's what Pat and I speak to each other every night before we.
Through the future.
You guys hold hands, just lay on your backs in bed.
Chant that. Night, love you.
And then the ceiling turns into red curtains.
Have a whisk away.
Yeah.
Like, let me turn on the sound machine as Julie Cruz playing.
Oh, seeing older Julie Cruz was really sad for me. I did not like that.
She was fine.
Anyway, we'll get there. But so we get that poem with the one-armed man, and I think if you use the chance verbiage here, it makes a lot more sense. Like, this is Cooper's one chance out.
Right.
Between two worlds, old Twin Peaks and new Twin Peaks, but he has to be ready to walk with the fire. And then it cuts the woods, and it kind of fades the staircase to Jeffries.
And it's the same sequence that we saw with evil Coop trying to find Philip Jeffries, except this time Good Coop has the one-armed man as his leader. So he's just like...
No Dugpas, just one-armed man.
He's like, the manager is taking me through this, so...
Right.
VIP treatment.
Yeah,
guys.
you can send the Dugpas home. And the whole Jeffries thing is a lot of mythos. Like, this would be, like, very black oil heavy X-Files stuff. Like, wow.
On acid.
Yeah. We get owl cave symbols inverted and reverted and with, like, little... I'm like,
the infinity sign, which is like an infinite...
But with a dot in different positions.
Right, like the dots moving to...
So what is the first symbol is the one that they always show. That's is that?
Owl cave.
That's the owl.
And it's... We don't know what it really is.
Right. It was just the symbol of Twin Peaks to them to get into...
I always took it to be the White Lodge and the Black Lodge because, like, if you invert it on one side, it's like the white, and then you turn it around, it's the black. Listeners, I'm making all sorts of gestures with my hands that you're not seeing, but...
And I really want to get tattooed on my wrist, so...
I thought about doing that, too.
Dot?
No, not with a little dot.
That's the owl. I'm already jumping ahead to the infinity.
I drew them all on my notebook here. But so, like, there's this one, then this one, then this one. Again, in an oral media, these are really helpful things.
Right. So it's the owl symbol, and then the little wings.
Owl cave symbol.
pop off and turn into
two diamonds.
Which
is actually the Log Lady and Major Briggs tattoos together.
Yes.
Combined, yeah.
So there's that.
And then they just turn into a nice, like, swervy 8, and then, like, a thicker 8 with a little ball running through.
With the dot running through.
It was infinity.
Yeah, an infinity, but there's a dot.
Right, well, so what I thought was that the dot was, like... I didn't think about it until the end, right, when he rolled the ball back. So I thought, well, that's where she's at, where they're going to take him. But the thing that I thought was weird was that before it moved, it turned like that.
Yeah.
So then it kind of made me think, like, is it a different, like, universe, like a parallel universe or something like that?
I think that's certainly possible. And if Star Trek The Next Generation has taught me anything, it's that, like, parallel dimensions are possible. Every combination of events is possible. So I think that that's what they're starting to lead us into, is, like, this idea of, what if we change this one event? What would it mean for all these people?
Because that's what Cooper is asking Philip Jeffries. He's like, I need to go back to February 23rd, 1989.
Right.
And he's like, I'll see what I can do. It's slippery in here.
And then he says, this is where you'll find Judy.
And he was like, didn't you ask me that already?
And that was Evil Coop.
Right.
Yeah, Jeffries doesn't know the difference between Evil Coop and regular Coop.
Right.
We see that because the first time we see Jeffries in the flashback, which was actually in Fire Walk With Me, he points to Good Coop and says, do you know who that is? Like, he thinks that's Evil Coop. So he has no Coopdar. He, like, doesn't have any idea who's good and who's evil. So certainly this scene makes me think that Laura Palmer is Judy, or Sarah Palmer, or Laura Palmer, because right after he says, this is where you'll find Judy, and there's symbols, it transfers to the fan blades, and then we're at the Fire Walk With Me scene with Laura Palmer and James.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that Laura Palmer is Judy.
Right.
And that she's her own origin of pain and suffering.
Or that Judy was there at that time in that location. Maybe.
Because this was the time where she tells Bobby, your Laura has disappeared. He's going to come kill you.
Which is so brilliant. That is pretty brilliant, because I'm like, okay, that could just easily have been, and when I saw it, I just took it to be a teenager just being like, the girl you knew's gone and this new one. Like, Donna would have said that because Donna got a new pair of sunglasses. Like, Laura says these things because she's been taken over by another being. Like, it's like those things in teenagedom. It's a crazy thing. But then in Laura's case, it's legit. Like, in Laura's case, it's all real.
Yeah, because her dad raped her a bunch. So.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of cocaine.
I do think it's interesting how the shot, which these are all shots from Fire Walk With Me, black and white, we see her getting on the bike with James from Leland's perspective, which is neat.
And kind of creepy.
Yeah. I like the way, too, that they manage... So what they do is they bring Cooper into Fire Walk With Me, and they kind of, like, have him in the woods seeing Laura's final night.
The Dementors. I mean, wait a minute.
Oh my god, it's the Dementors! It's another Harry Potter. And they're using just footage from Fire Walk With Me, and there's a moment where Laura screams because she sees, which I thought was Bob.
It probably was Bob.
But in this, it's Dale.
Did he might have replaced Bob or Leland Bob.
Oh, it could be.
In this instance.
Right.
But can I just mention my favorite line of this whole sequence?
Yes, please.
That Laura turns to James and goes, Bobby killed a guy.
And you said that, I think a couple podcasts ago. You said, does anybody remember Bobby killed a guy? That was so funny.
It's like
the best scene.
This is just, it's so funny because it's just kind of like out of the blue, like, Bobby killed a guy.
And then she's like helping to bury him by Bob.
I know, it's my favorite.
It's the best. It's like, it shows that Laura is fun. Laura's got a fun sense of humor.
She is pretty
It's the first
she's
time
a
you
fun
don't.
girl.
She is fun, but like, you don't see like how funny Laura is. Like, she's really funny. I do like this, like...
Bobby killed a guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Laura's fun and funny, she says to James, you don't even know me. Which, that has been a big theme of the series, is like, who am I? So we had Diane being like, I'm not me, I'm not me. We had Audrey, R.I.P., being like, I'm not me, I'm not me. You know, all these people who don't know who they are, so that was a good kind of reference. And we are getting the exact scene from Fire Walk With Me, but now from Cooper's perspective.
And inhabited people who are not really them, too.
Right.
Or
now, the Ronette, Leo, Jacques shot, is that in Fire Walk With Me?
I think it was.
It
was.
Okay,
yeah.
because that
They're
was
waiting
character.
for-
She wandered up to him, right?
Yeah.
In the movie?
Yeah, in the movie she wanders
But,
up to him.
so we see them waiting, and it's just elongated because it's like they're waiting.
She never shows up.
Because one thing I remember thinking with Fire Walk With Me that I don't think we've talked about in our Fire Walk With Me podcast, you know, Laura, we all know, hops off the bike at Sparkwood and 20, and she does so in this way that she's like, I love you, and she's all dramatic, and she just turns the corner and meets Jacques and Leo and Ronette.
Yeah.
Like, so she planned to meet them there, so it makes me think that whole, like, hysterics she threw
was an act.
It was an act.
Well, I think part of it was an act, but I think part
yeah.
of it was like, no, now I gotta go sleep with all of these dudes and do so much cocaine. Like, no,
It's a
just
little
leave
bit
me.
of
I
both,
love
but
you, but I hate you. I gotta go do some drugs.
Right, it's that
now.
duality. Like,
Yeah.
she, like, had... But, like, there was one version of Laura that planned, like, I'm going to use James to get a ride to go to this thing, and then I'm going to, like, fake a histrionic fit with him to, like, get off the bike and go.
Yeah.
And then meet these other people. Like, it does paint her in a different light, like, when I think of it that way.
Well, even in her journal, she's like, I love James, but he's so stupid. She's
Right.
like, I can manipulate this one like no other.
Well, and what's funny is, like, knowing that and how she feels about Bob, then you imagine her coming upon in the woods a man in a black suit just being like, come to me. It's like Phantom of the fucking Opera. Like, I'd be like, okay, Dale Cooper. You know, like, she's just, like, entranced. Like, upgrade. You could have been with Canadian Tuxedo Brigade, and now you've got Cary Grant. Like, things are going so good for you.
And
Well,
I've seen you in a dream.
Right. So again, making me think that maybe Laura is the dreamer, and maybe Coop is trapped in the dream.
It could
I don't
be,
know.
yeah. Because Coop does seem to not be able to get out of this, like, rut. It's like a groove in an album that he can't get out of. Yeah.
That
But
could be
everybody-
because then he comes back and tries. You see him trying to save her in Texas, and I'm going to take you to your mom's house, and then that's the last scene, and then she screams and.
Well, you know what's interesting and would be a good. So you guys remember the Truman Show?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, the clues in the Truman Show that the reality wasn't real was that, like, nobody's life is filled completely with people who are obsessed with them and, like, their needs and their stuff. In Cooper's world, it's all about Cooper, like the Mitchum brothers and Janie E.
In Cooper's world and then Laura's world,
Well,
which
that's
is
true.
Twin Peaks, everyone's obsessed
Exactly.
with them,
So it's like one of these worlds could conceivably not be real at all. And I do love, love, love the shots of, like, Josie and Pete and Catherine, because that's like, here's some regular people, as dramatic and, like, you know, they're VIPs in Twin Peaks, but, like, this is just a regular people having a regular day, like, their life, and how little it would have had to do with Laura Palmer had not her body washed up on the shore that day. It's very interesting
she has
to think
get
about.
into everyone's lives.
Yeah.
Well, so my thing too is why did Coop, right after defeating Bob out the gate, why did Coop then decide the time was to go back and save Laura Palmer of all people? I mean, I know she was. So was it because she was the initial case and he was still solving that? But why did he decide to go back and save her? When...
Or could it be his fatal hubris? Like, Cooper consistently makes the same mistake, which is going back to save the girl. Like, he did it with Carolyn. He's too empathetic.
Yeah.
He relates too much to one person to, like, look at the greater good. You know?
I don't know. It does seem like.
I also think it's somehow part of his destiny. Like the giant gave Freddy his destiny. The giant also let Laura's bubble out into the world, and, like, that was something that Cooper was.
And they have a connection.
Right.
Every time they kiss, like Cheryl Lee and Kyle MacLachlan, I'm like, wow. They have
They always
so
look
much
like
chemistry.
they're also trying not to giggle a lot.
I know, and I think it's because they're both just like, this is so weird that we're kissing. Again, Luke and Leia. Like, they're like
25 years later.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting, but I think that he has this. He's got the Jon Snow syndrome. He's going to go for what's noble versus what's going to make the most people happy. Because if Cooper would just have left that sheriff's department, being like, okay, great, I've got Diane and Evil Cooper's dead, and oh, you know what? I've got about 2 hours. I'm going to go to that mental institution and save Audrey from herself by being like, sorry I raped you. Let me take a better interest in your life and like tell you that you're not wrong and say hi to Ben Horn and be like, let's reconcile that relationship. Like he could have like done that in like 3.5 hours. But instead he was like, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go and start the whole thing over again. Right. It's like... He's just that noble. He can't. He has to go to the wall.
Because when he's basically leading Laura through the woods, does he say we're going home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going home. He has no home. His home. He just left his home.
Right. I thought the same thing. What is home?
His home was Gordon and Diane. And even now, even more now that we know he loves Diane, like. Part of Cooper's appeal in the original series was that he was an empty vessel. You know, he comes into this scene. We don't meet Cooper first. We meet Twin Peaks first. We meet Twin Peaks people first, and that's our viewpoint. And then Cooper comes in as an outsider, and he wins us over really through, like, Harry and Cooper's relationship.
Right.
But it's not the story of Cooper. Cooper's just the Alice in Wonderland. Mm-hmm. But... you know, now this season it was really all about
because
Cooper.
If he's the dreamer inside of a dream, then he's the main character.
Right.
So we're living inside a dream, but who's the dreamer is basically
Laura. Then Laura is
or
the dreamer.
Is it Laura or is it Coop? One of those two people have to. That's the big question. Because then, like the next scene after. Is really well done because it is the flashback to the pilot.
I love the flashback.
And instead, there's just no body for Pete to find.
So it's just a day. And the way that without the body, what the day shows me is just this sort of empty sadness that this family has.
Yeah.
Because it's Josie putting on lipstick and Pete and Catherine having a horrible marriage and Pete going fishing, which isn't... a happy ending by any means. So that's where I thought that could have been the ending.
I think you're right.
And been like, great. Because it would have been like, oh, we see the significance of Laura Palmer's death and what it did for this town in a good and bad way.
And then we are left with hope of what actually happened to all of those invested characters.
Right.
So you're correct. If it ended there, it would have been... peaceful and
that's
happy.
actually kind of the ending I would have wanted because it wouldn't have been sugary sweet. We're not getting answers to everything, but it's just like, okay, her body disappears. Like Pete walks the dock and is fishing. And it's just like, oh, another day. But we know that they're all sad and they have problems and they're not going to meet Dale and like we don't know what's going to happen. But it's like. The significance of one event on these people's lives, which I always thought was supposed to be the story of Twin Peaks initially, was like death has meaning here, or life has meaning here. Every life. It's not just a faceless statistic, which is what Coop says to Albert. You know, so it's all about like in Twin Peaks, one death means something, and this is like packing up and putting to bed this one death, but that's not the way they go with it.
No. Because then they shoot to the Palmer house in present day? Or
right. Well, it was the... I mean, did she have the cigarette?
Well, that
was she smoking like that before?
The high school prom picture is there,
really,
and that was not there before.
Right.
I think it was the past. I think it was also the past.
Like in the same timeline.
I think so. I think she got upset that Laura was taken away, maybe.
I think it was
that was what confused me because
I don't know.
But where was Leland if...
And you see her cigarettes, and you see prescription drug cases. That was
we don't know,
We don't see Leland. Sarah is just moaning. So, yeah, it's interesting. The way this goes, like, just to back up for a minute, is, like, once, once Dale says, like, where are we going? We're going home to Laura. We cut to the first scenes in Twin Peaks, and we have, like, Catherine and Josie, and it's, like, beat by beat the first scenes, but then it's Pete as though the body was never discovered.
Right, yes.
And, like, Pete fishing, which is, like, great. But then it cuts to the Palmer house, and we think it's modern day because there's cigarettes everywhere, there's empty booze, there's pill cans, and the one thing that's different is that... So that does
seem modern. Yeah, okay.
There's the prom picture. But she didn't have the prom picture...
Right.
In modern day. There's the Donna and Laura picture, which I noticed it was Maureen Kelly, not...
Laura Flynn.
Right, not Laura Flynn Boyle.
Yeah, no one
she had, like,
Laura
a
Flynn
Donna
Boyle.
Picture... It was more like the picture she had in her original room.
I thought it was, 1989, but
so
I don't know. It's because she always smoked.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she was always on pills.
But there's no Leland. It's a back room. It seems like modern day.
Because Leland was out stalking the gang.
True. And at first, because, like, when I first initially thought it, I thought it was modern day where Laura lived, so thus there was more pictures of her, but it makes more sense for her because Sarah takes the prom picture and smashes it over and over, and then with the verb sound too. So my guess is it might have been like the past, because then it's like this isn't happening now,
which is
so
a great
now
bring back of Leland doing the same thing where he dances with the picture and breaks it, and then there's blood on the frame.
Oh yeah.
So I take it to mean that, like, a parent, if you're a parent whose child has died, your existence becomes mourning that child, and there has to be some part of you that resents that child. Like, and that's what I saw from Sarah with that prom picture. Like, I didn't see that, like, she disappeared. I saw that the same thing. It was a dead child. That she was like, I can't handle this anymore.
Have you seen the movie The OA, or that series on Netflix?
No, I have not.
Some of it. Like,
so I thought the end of The OA was very similar to Audrey's wake-up scene. Literally, very similar.
Wow.
And The OA also talks about parallel universes through life and death. The other two callbacks that I thought of when I was watching this was Stranger Things, obviously, with the parallel universe.
Upside down.
Right. And part of me thinks that that's like the firewalk with me, is that if there are different versions of you, and in this case, there was a good Coop and a bad Coop.
Yeah.
And maybe they live within, the same... They're in parallel universes, but in the same position. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, you're walking with your evil self. Or something along those lines, I thought of.
I like that, and I'm going to say also what reminds me of Twin Peaks is the Dark Tower series.
That's exactly it.
Not only doing that in this one.
Right. Not only is there, like, many worlds in the Dark Tower series, but you have the Walking Man, the Dark Man.
Right.
Who is Randall Flagg.
Yep.
Is Dark. That's the Dark Coop.
Yeah.
So it's obviously
so
not the same.
So sad that it doesn't seem like they're going to go that way with the new series.
No, they blew it, and they're not. They meant to do a franchise, and it didn't make enough.
I sort of feel like that there are these beings that maybe have different levels of power. I don't know.
In Twin Peaks or in the
Right, in Twin Peaks. And that, people like the Fireman, the One-Arm Man.
True.
That those people kind of live between these parallel worlds, sort of like in the Dark Tower.
Very good.
And part of what they were trying to do was to track down Bob and Judy. And
to, suck up their power and join them.
Right.
Judy seems to be...
I totally see that. If we're going with the idea of
use the microphone,
the whole Laura Palmer didn't die, what characters in Twin Peaks do you think would have better lives because she didn't die? What characters do you think would have worse lives because she didn't die? And what characters do you think their lives would probably be the same because she didn't die?
So what do you think, I guess to go back to when he pulled her away, what do you think that meant then? Did everybody just think she ran away?
Well, I guess that's what we don't know.
Yeah.
She just disappeared from
or if it changed the timeline,
right?
Or...
So to my thinking, there's multiple realities in part 18. Multiple realities. One of the main ones is the reality of like Laura Palmer didn't die, and that's where we see in 17 Pete not finding her body.
Yeah.
There's also the return didn't happen reality that we'll unpack in a bit. But so I'm saying if we go with the like Laura Palmer didn't die, meaning let's say that she like lived and had a normal life.
But is she still missing? And like,
that's a good question. I guess it
no.
depends.
We'll say no. She's
not missing. She's not missing.
We won't overcomplicate it. You're just saying like what people would benefit,
right?
Without her.
Like if you think about the character's trajectory within the original Twin Peaks, who like actually.
But there's so many what ifs. Like,
I know.
Is Leland still raping her?
Right, or is he raping somebody else now that Laura's gone?
I would assume that he would still be raping her.
He would still be raping. So
yeah.
she's still not
she
having
still has
an
a bad
A-okay
life.
life.
Yeah.
And she
Sarah's
likely...
still going to be like weirdly drug addict.
Right, and Laura could be, because she starts this pattern of like sleeping with men and using them and like to like feel something. She could hurt even more people.
Right, and then...
she could get pregnant.
I know. I would say Donna would have a worse life too but
Firewalk with James and
right, and then James would maybe be a little bit better, but still awful.
Yeah,
because everyone was on a horrible path anyway, kind of going forward.
Yeah.
No one was doing well.
I mean, I do think there are some people who have sort of a redemptive story because of Laura Palmer dying, and
like
those are
Bobby,
right? Bobby, Audrey.
Ben,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, Ben definitely is a different person.
Right.
Would he have succeeded in his scheme of the mill plot?
Right, and just been
and
like
then
that.
Just been an evil,
Snidely Whiplash type character. We can agree that Lucy and Andy would be the same. Like, they'd probably have the same life.
I don't think...
They'd have ended up together. They might have had a few complications, but they'd have ended up together.
Hawk would have probably been the same.
Same. Yeah.
Log Lady would still be dead.
That's true. Yep.
Yep.
It's true. It's true.
So many
We're all gonna die
it's
someday.
It's the definitely like it's like just the infinite possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Star Trek.
Because then if she like disappeared but is still alive, I feel like some people would have better. Like I think Sarah Palmer would be on a better track,
right?
Versus if she was still at home being raped by her husband, like her daughter was still being raped by her husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he keeps everything so surreal that he never really touches on anything with the rules, right? Kind of going back to the rules of like what's the ring and the rocks in the pockets and when you go into an alternate or not like a parallel universe, but you
go through the portal, what kind of
and what happens to that person that is you in that version of reality? Do you like meld with that person and become a hybrid, right? Or are there two versions of you in a universe, and that goes to the two
exactly? Yeah,
that there can only be one. Remember
exactly. I think so. Upon rewatching 18, I do, and having some space, so we've taken a week now and kind of had some space and rewatched it. And interestingly, I found myself too liking it more when I was kind of defending it to other people, because had a company party and a couple different people were talking to me about their feelings about Twin Peaks, and there was a lot of like general feelings of it doesn't have the charm and witty quirkiness, soapiness of the original series.
We already knew that.
We already knew that. And like I do think if you accept this ending and look back, it does make sense and it has a lot of merit. I will say still my problem is that you could have parts 1 and 2 and 17 and 18 and not have episodes 2 through 16 of The Return. Like, that sandwich of episodes doesn't have anything to do with these bookends, which is a choice, and that works, but like, I would rather they have some tie-in, because they don't. But I like it. I'm finding it more acceptable and more interesting.
I don't still.
Why, Melissa? Share.
Because I felt like 18 was just, it was one of Lynch's, I'm going into this way, this is the direction I'm going, like, fuck everyone that's been paying attention. Like, and I was literally watching what I call the endless road trip, being like, I wish a bomb was going off for 5 minutes. I would rather watch a fucking bomb go off like I did in 8 for an abnormal amount of time, and I get there's symbolism behind everything, but it's just like, I feel like the first half was just kind of reiterating, trying to get you to connect things that he won't connect for you, which is frustrating as a viewer and a fan. And then, who doesn't have music playing on their fucking road trips? Cooper and Diane. It's just silence as they drive and drive. And
Same
then
with Cooper and
Laura.
Carrie,
Laura. Yeah. Just no.
Right.
And that's a fucking long road trip to just be sitting in silence.
What kind of music would Dale
no one has a phone being whipped out to be like, well, at least I'm going to go through Instagram.
So one thing that I kind of thought when I watched it, though, is it does kind of remind me, I mean, you know, I always think of when I drive to somewhere where it's maybe a distance and you're all in the car and everybody's talkative, but then when you come back, how oftentimes everybody's just very silent and kind of sitting in the car. So it kind of made me think of like, well, like,
it's the
I could kind of see that. It's
once again, the return, and it's like, we've done our job, and now we're coming back.
My road trips are still fun each direction. There are playlists. There are maps of all the things we could do in between the two areas.
Well, he put a song on during sex. No.
Well, he didn't put a song on, so do we have to explain the difference? There is, to
David
me,
Lynch did it.
Yes.
There's like a little bit of a... I actually liked the beginning half of the episode before they got to Odessa a lot. I think once they get to Odessa, the wind kind of gets knocked. The first scene...
Or do you think you're just craving some of the love of Twin Peaks, and so you get that with so much of the Red Room,
right?
That once you get to Odessa, you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be
I think
here.
And once you get to Odessa and you get Cheryl Lee, and like that first scene with Cheryl Lee and Kyle MacLachlan is interesting. It's cool to see her as a different person, and
you also, by that point, you know it's ending and that they're not going to
they're not going to come back to anyone.
Certain storylines. So
right. I mean, if they did do season 4, I just don't even think they could call it Twin Peaks anymore, unless maybe they do it. Maybe they could call it Visiting Twin Peaks, and they could have one episode where they visit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could see if they did like an alternate reality where, oh, look, it's all these different versions of these characters now. Yeah. Which would be kind of cool.
I want to unpack the last Black Lodge scene. Is the same as part 1 Black Lodge scene. So the in terms of the lines. Now, I don't think they actually took the same footage because Kyle MacLachlan's reactions are different. So the like, is it future or is it past? That happened in part 1. And then I'm the arm, I sound like this. The first scene we see the arm with like the tree branch and that's the same as part 1. But Kyle MacLachlan's reactions are different. And then we also get this like story of the little girl who lived down the lane line.
He doesn't say that. The tree doesn't say that in the first
No,
episode.
He doesn't. Yeah. He says, is it the story of the little girl who lived down the lane? And that is the tie-in to Audrey's story.
Did they also mention that in episode 8 at the end when they're in the 50s? Is she the little girl who lives down the lane?
Could be.
Oh.
Interesting. Like, so, yeah, I think that's certainly very possible.
And that's possibly Sarah again.
Well, so then, and that makes it maybe that, well, so Audrey references the little girl who lived down the lane to Charlie, and I think like their third go around about going to it's not their first time talking about going to the Roadhouse. And so originally I thought the little girl who lived down the lane was Audrey talking about herself. But now my thought was like, oh, she's talking about Laura. But actually you make a good, that could be about, we all say Sarah, but we actually we don't know for sure if that flashback was Sarah. That song, though, is playing, so the song My Prayer by the Patters, it's like a very doo-wop song, is playing when, it's just easier to call it little Sarah Palmer, is...
This is the water, and
yeah,
this is
the
well.
Woodsman radio broadcast show hour, where little
Drink
alien
and
vessels
descend.
climb into your esophagus, and Future State, where Diane and Coop makes... I don't want to say sweet love because it's not. I do want to talk about that. So, when Diane and Cooper are past the point of electricity, which I love too, how Cooper just feels it out and he can tell when they're at the point. And they do bring in the 430. So 430 is the amount of miles they took to get to this point.
Yes.
Of portal point.
Yes.
And then when they pass it, they're still Diane and Cooper, but they're different.
And they it was almost sort of like they kissed each other, possibly for the last time.
Mm-hmm, right.
You definitely get the sense that they have no idea who they'll be when they cross this point.
Oh, and I know we're not going totally linearly, but I do want to backtrack and just say, when Coop re-enters the world from the Black Lodge in this version, he's in Sycamore Grove and not
the Sycamore trees,
wherever he was before, and Diane's waiting for him. So it
Yeah.
seems much more like they had everything planned and everything that happened in Twin Peaks she was on top of and knew where to go and find him.
Right.
Which makes sense.
The plan was going according to plan up until then.
Right.
Maybe.
But so when they do get to the hotel or motel, that's where everything starts to get a little bit foggy.
Right.
Because that's where we see the other version of Diane.
Because I feel like the description shouldn't be what is your name, which is what it is via Showtime. It should be, is this the future or is this the past? Because it's a constant question of you don't know the timeline of when things are happening. Because once they get to the motel and then things get... both of them are acting weird or quiet. It's an awkward road trip. Yeah. And then Coop goes in to get a room, and then Diane sees...
another version of herself.
Right.
Yeah, and so is it future or is it past is actually the description for 17, and I think that brings to, this is all just one big episode, even though they...
Right.
Yeah, and when they do... get into the hotel room, a couple things of note. Number one, I think it's funny that Coop says to turn off the light. As a woman, I would find that extremely unflattering if you're about to make sweet love and the guy's turn off the light.
One that usually likes to have the light on though. We'll keep this off. But I thought maybe they would have a conversation.
It should be lady's choice. It shouldn't be the gentleman being I don't want to see your naked body.
Diane was all right, now we're just in this hotel room, so we're going to do it right now.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, they seem to be Diane and Cooper, but they also seem to have not had sex before, which I guess could be true of Diane and Cooper.
Right.
We know they've kissed before. We know that
yeah.
evil Cooper raped her, but we don't know if... Anyway.
But was that this Diane?
Right. Does she remember that or not? Which I think that plays into the next moment. So, they make a purposeful allusion to evil Coop because Dale Coop says, come over here to me. Yeah. And that's what he says to Chantal, or what evil Coop says to Chantal in the first scene with Chantal in a motel. Okay. And he says it in the same inflection as Evil Coop. Yeah. And he's having more and more vocal patterns of Evil Coop in this episode.
And he wasn't reactionary at all.
I don't think that this Coop is evil, because we were talking about this.
No, he's not evil, but he's
He's not our Coop. He's not
Dale Coop.
Is he? I mean, he's Gray Coop, right?
Right.
Is he Richard? Is Richard Gray Coop?
Right.
Could be.
So we find out Richard and Linda are Diane and Cooper. But what's weird is so I think that this kind of extendedly long lovemaking scene has a purpose because it shows us Diane having
really long.
It was really long. I mean, for one thing, we know that Coop in any iteration likes to have the woman on top. Because Dougie Coop had Janie E on top.
Well, he was also like a stroke victim.
Right.
I really couldn't be
Right,
like...
he couldn't really be in command there, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Did we see Evil Coop have sex in?
No, we didn't. No.
He just likes the raping. So
Yeah,
He
he's
didn't
just
get
into
that
raping.
opportunity.
I guess
Yeah.
he would be on top.
It's
Yeah.
like Chantel and Hutch is a shame, man. You didn't get that
I
opportunity.
know, yeah. No, it just hasn't worked out for you, Chantal.
For the torture.
Yeah, but it's interestingly shot because Kyle MacLachlan is just staring directly at Laura Dern, like hardcore.
Yeah.
And she is like looking up at the ceiling, either like at times ecstatic, at times crying. She puts her hands over his face, which I take back. Like originally I thought that was maybe a callback to NATO where she was trying to like feel his face because she was blind. No, she's blocking his face.
Because it's not the same Cooper.
Right, and then the letter
That's how
from...
I view it.
So the letter from Linda to Richard says, when you read this, I'll be gone. Please don't try to find me. I don't recognize you anymore. Whatever we had once is gone. Linda. So, is she crying because she's Linda there and she's saying whatever we had once is gone?
Yeah.
I don't recognize you anymore. Is she crying because she's remembering the rape of Evil Coop? Is she crying because she knows she has to leave Coop and go for whatever reason and desert him? So it's like a very...
Pick your...
heavy with choose your own adventure scene.
But as we mentioned, so then once it's morning and Coop gets this note, when he goes out, it's a different hotel
Seems like
motel.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are different, then his car is different than the car that he drove in.
Right.
On. So like we don't know if now is it a different time or is it a different place.
And he's still an FBI agent. He still has the pin. When he reads the note, he says Richard. Like, so he hasn't changed.
He's a little more Coopy there.
Yeah. It
But
seems
not-
like he gets so devastated by losing Diane that he becomes sort of a dick, or he already was changing because his behavior in the diner is just not the Coop that we're used to.
Right.
I mean, I know he's getting shit done and being...
Right.
But that's where I'm like, okay, I don't think he's evil. I agree with Nate. It's like gray Coop. It's not. It's the kind of middle Coop. But that's when we get to Odessa.
I think he's clearly lost some memories.
Right.
Obviously, I mean.
Or is he? Well, and my thing too with
doesn't know exactly where he is.
Or like
What
I think
time
too,
is-
maybe it's sort of like he's two people. Is sort of how I thought. Maybe he knows things, but he doesn't know why he knows them because Richard knows them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I almost feel like there's some kind of melding there of the two.
Yeah.
So, because you get flashes of Coop, and then you get flashes of this isn't who Coop is or how he would act.
That's exactly it. And and we didn't mention, we skipped the Dougie return, which is just a sweet scene where they make Dougie whole and he pops up in the Black Lodge, and we were all commenting as we're watching that like yet again Kyle MacLachlan being amazing because Dougie is wearing the same thing as regular Coop. There's
his
nothing.
facial expression is different.
But like the first second he says something, it's Dougie and not Dale. Like it's just like totally. Kyle MacLachlan can just play three characters in his face.
That was
without anything else.
Yeah, that's the last story that we get a nice.
Right, because Dougie does as promised, and I knew when Dale said, I'll come walking through that red door and it'll be like nothing changed.
You knew we were
that he was going to deliver on that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw that moment. It was really sweet. But then the question is it like nothing changed? Like none of that stuff with the Mitchum brothers or anything happened?
No, I think that did happen.
I think it was linear. I think Dougie showed up and he still has all those relationships established.
Okay. So then my theory that the return never happened isn't quite right. I was thinking
we
that...
don't know that because now we're past that point too. So
we're going into different universes.
So it's a different platform in general.
The thing about Dougie, I think that is, and I really didn't enjoy the Dougie story that much, but I thought that it was interesting that you had all these like various characters that were not great people in a lot of ways, but they sort of became better people through like interacting with someone who really didn't influence them a lot. It was just sort of like the way they saw themselves through
Right, they
him.
got to project onto Dougie.
He was like so he was like a mirror because he mirrored
and they all sort of became better people because of him.
Totally. Well,
but that's what Coop did.
Exactly.
That was like the big... Cooper just made everyone love him, and like when he came into Twin Peaks, everyone gravitated towards it. I mean,
people their best self.
Yes.
You know, like, agreed. I think that's where, you know, when we talk about characters who, if Laura Palmer hadn't died, wouldn't have as good a life. Like, Dale definitely made Audrey a better person. Like, he spurred her into being into the FBI and into taking control, and
he also in turn then got her addicted to heroin and almost had her do her dad.
True. And then she's in a coma now, so you know, would you rather
maybe she had just woken up from the coma.
I think she did wake up from the coma.
She did wake up from the coma, but now she's in the same space he is. You could have another series that's just like the return of Audrey. Like Cooper, I thought the return was going to be about like the return of Cooper into these people's lives, and it was. But I think,
but it was like 4 episodes too much of Dougie still being Dougie. Like they could have gotten. I feel like the fans. Like me, who value the relationships more than necessarily the mythology of everything and portals and number theory and all of that.
Although that's fun.
It's fun, but it's also, it's very, sometimes you just want good, clean fun. And that's...
Sometimes you just want added
if
Norma.
you had like 2 more episodes where you found out what happened to... If you brought Dougie in to be Coop 2 episodes ago, where then we could find out what happened to Shelley, what happened with Red, what happened with the Sparkle coming down from Canada, like the B plots
couple
did Steven really kill himself? Like,
well, and we had the funny thing is in original Twin Peaks, they had too much time to resolve B plots because they resolved the A plot,
and that
too
could just
soon.
be like David Lynch being like, that sucks, so now...
so let's not do that. Let's literally end right at this kind of cliffhanger. And the interesting thing with this reality of Twin Peaks, any reality you want to have happen with any of the characters could have happened.
Right.
Like, we could make an argument for anything. Sure. So that's kind of a fun... But also...
I like more factual information.
Yeah. And the scene at the Judy's coffee shop kind of does bother me because it's Cooper being...
It's so gray.
It's so gray. Yeah.
It's so gray Cooper.
And now, I don't know if this was just unintentional, but I feel like the exterior that they used there is the exterior of the same place they used for Bang Bang Bar that we went and had breakfast that one day in Snoqualmie. It's that same little place that's right around that corner.
It could be.
Which is like, they're always trying to make allusions to Twin
Peaks.
There
are a lot of diners.
Right, and the waitress, Christy, has like a peach uniform, but she's got red shoes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She looks like Becky Burnett.
I think that like they could have brought in a well-known face for that waitress role, but I think that by having all these unknowns in that part, it sort of keeps that isolationist feel that you have. You don't know where he is or you know what's going on.
Or what motivates him. I mean, and as someone who, I mean, I could not love Cheryl Lee more. I think she's just an amazing actress, and she does a fantastic job in this episode, for sure. I couldn't love Kyle MacLachlan more.
I love Kyle MacLachlan.
The two of them together I couldn't love more, and yet I still didn't want that screen time only devoted to them.
Right.
It seems like we have an
obligation
where to...
nothing moved forward, but that's the transcendental meditation where it's like,
I guess like you said,
need to...
like you said, if they did bring back Hoop a little bit earlier,
right,
then this episode maybe wouldn't have been that bad because
it would just be like denouement.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Like, on top of that,
I don't know. Yeah, he didn't want
to do that.
He was done with those storylines, I guess.
Or if you tied Laura more into episodes 2 through 16, because to me the problem here is that, or 3 through 16, because 1 and 2 and 17 and 18 are, you could literally just put those together and sell it as like a standalone movie. Like, and that would be fine. You wouldn't need anything from 3 to 16. So it's like, we were constantly saying throughout the podcast, like, where's Laura? It's not really about Laura anymore.
Right. Like, she comes in with the bomb sequence at 8, where we get a big, like, mythology episode where it's like, she's this bubble that gets sent out. So she's something there. But that's it. We haven't seen her. Bobby cries, but that was episode 2.
I agree with your theory on this about what the fireman.
Which one?
Yeah.
He created.
Is that what you were gonna say, or
to like save? Because if the fireman's the log lady's husband too, which has been like an idea.
Oh, okay.
Then they're like a force for good.
Yeah.
But
I knew Laura would come back in the end, though, because when we rewatched 1 and 2, the fire... Wait, who's it? It was Leland who said, find Laura. So,
Which he makes an appearance to say that again.
Yeah, which is part of the loop.
I mean, a bit cheated, too, that we didn't see Sarah, because you could make a case that Sarah's story is kind of more of a major story throughout the return than Laura's.
We see her smashing the window in 17.
We see her in 17.
And then we hear
her in 18.
End, which is
cool. I do like the very end is cool.
The end is chilling. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is.
It's just, I'm still disappointed. Still disappointed.
I do think we see shades of Dougie too when.
Well, yeah, he's a little out of it. Yeah.
Oh, did we talk about Alice Tremond yet?
No.
We're still.
So that's the.
We're still at Judy's.
So
we're at Judy's now.
Oh yeah, so with Grey Doug.
Yeah. So.
Or not Grey Doug. Geez, Grey Coop.
Grey Coop.
Yes.
Richard Coop. There's so many Coops.
Richard Coop.
Richard Coop.
R.C. Cola. So he goes to get Cheryl Lee, and I do like that. That is who you expect to come to the door when he's looking for the other waitress. I think you expect to be Laura.
One thing I noticed though, when he asks her if she's Laura Palmer, she doesn't know Laura Palmer. But then he says, your father was Leland and your mother is Sarah, and she's like...
freaking out a little.
What's going on?
Yeah.
To Sarah.
So Sarah.
She says that like Laura.
Sarah.
Yeah, she says Sarah like
and
like
she
Laura
says,
would say.
Rather than saying like the way she says that, like, are you Laura Palmer? Like, instead of going, no, she goes, I'm not her. Like, that's kind of a weird, like, it's like that, like, I don't know who I am thing coming back in.
Right.
I thought that was cool.
Big theme. And then he goes, it's very important that you come with me.
Which is
very important has been really...
It's very important that NATO comes up here, and it's very important that you, like, Right. That's been a big one.
It's just very important.
Because that's the whole, like, pay attention thing. Listen, look, that keeps coming up.
This is very important right now.
Yeah. And it's... So I do love when David Lynch does this where you're dropped into the middle of a story and you don't get that story. And so we were dropped into the middle of a story of Carrie Page, which is who Laura says she is. And she's like, normally I'd slam the door in your face, but, you know, I'm in a bit of a situation here, so I'm going to go with you. And then as she's, like, getting her coat and her bag and asking about the weather and what D.C.
And she does it because she goes, where are we going? And he says, Twin Peaks, Washington. And she goes, D.C. And he goes, no, state. And then she doesn't have any fucking idea where that is, which I do like maps. I'm not going to lie. I'm a map person, and what I do with work has a lot to do with maps and geography. But I still know where the fuck where Washington State is. Because then she's like, does it get cold up there? So I just put a note, what is happening with the education system in Odessa, Texas?
And then, you know, she's like just fretting over these details.
Yeah.
It turns out this whole time...
Yeah.
She has a dead body in a couch, like, just that's been shot in the head, clearly by her.
I think
Yeah.
She's not all there
Well, yeah, is she also sort of like how Grey Coop is, where maybe she's melded with whoever that alternate reality version of her is?
Yeah.
Because she has the white horse on the mantle, and there's a white horse in front of the diner.
Right. That keeps coming back. Or is it, so Pat and I just watched this weekend The Keepers, and unfortunately through the subject matter learned a lot about, like, repressing memories, and like people can repress memories for like 20 years.
It's one of those psychiatry things that I find so fucking fascinating.
I know, it's really interesting. It's very scary.
Really interesting to me.
So, and this series has had a big PTSD presence, and so could it be that that is Laura, and she's just literally like repressed that whole thing and like just made it in her mind just dissociated, where she's just like, no, this is my reality now. And as he's
very well could,
like the way this woman in The Keepers, and it's a documentary, so it's true, it's like real interviews. Oh my god, be ready to rock in the fetal position for like 3 days.
That's what I was like. I was reading it and I was like, not in the mood. Not in the mood.
It's amazing.
I'm gonna watch something British and light.
It's incredible, but yeah. And one of the women's like, it's like you're looking into a crack, and you have the option of like going further into it or like backing away. And it's like Laura is kind of there with like references to Leland and Sarah. Could she just be like an abuse victim who's just totally shut this down? That's another possibility.
Right.
And especially given how PTSD has been a theme in The Return in general, it could be a thing.
She's in the Black Lodge Witness Protection Agency program.
Right.
It's good.
She's her own Dougie. Just well, maybe dirtier.
So Alice Tremond, when they do finally get to Twin Peaks and
driving.
Yeah, and it is interesting because they pass the double R at night, so there's no one there.
I did the math. Yeah. So from Odessa, Texas to Spokane, Washington is 1,715 miles, which at the traffic around 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon takes about 23 hours.
23 hours?
There was a little bit of an accident somewhere in like one of the square seats.
Well, it kind of made me, I don't know, that was a weird scene.
Right.
Why?
23 hours. And she thinks someone's following her.
Well, because she's a dead guy. Because when she answers the door, she's like, did you find him?
Right.
Did you find him? And then she's like, FBI. She's like, well, I gotta get out of Dodge anyway, so coming with you is better than my other options.
It's so...
Which means, what are her other options?
Can we even speculate on who...
Yeah, we don't know who she's talking about. But when they do finally get to the Palmers, I had wanted to see Sarah reacting to this person. For good or ill, I really wanted to see that. And they go another way, and they have, that the Palmers didn't live there, and Alice Tremond lives there. And of course we know Tremond as the old lady from Meals on Wheels, whose son is magician creepy creamed corn boy Aka, David Lynch's son, the magician. So all of the masked people that we've seen kind of flashing in and out throughout the return.
And I think we've heard the name Chalfont before too.
Yes,
at the,
I do, but I don't know where
I think it was at the Dead Dog, or what do you call it? The trailer
Fat
farm.
Trout Farm.
Fat Trout Farm trailer park. Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
I think maybe.
Yeah. Ooh, I had a Lynchy moment where I thought I heard some weird noise.
Happens all the time now.
I know. Now I can't stand the sound of electricity crackling. Like, it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, I think someone's about to be murdered. And fan noises, which we're hearing right now. So.
Or how about record players skipping?
Oh, God, forget about it. No. But anyway, so Alice Tremond we know, and that's an interesting choice to have that character. I always say, like, the Tremonds, if the Tremonds aren't Dugpas themselves, they're at least Dugpa adjacent. They're, like, somewhere close to that realm.
No doubt.
So Alice Tremond is talking to her husband, who we don't see, and I have a theory it's either that she's married to the magician, Cream Corn Boy, or she's the daughter of the old lady.
Sarah?
Well, no, she's saying honey. It's not. It's a man. It says man's voice.
It does say that was the one thing I
voice.
did see that because I thought I didn't know if it was a man or a woman.
Yeah, it does
on
say
the other
man's
side.
voice.
And I did just assume it was a woman, thinking that was Sarah's mom or whomever, Judy, whatever that means.
Right.
But
Jowday.
Because then, as they're walking out, like Coop hyperventilates, or he has like a moment, and he's like, "What year is this?" And that will affect who Alice Tremont is.
Right.
It could be either of those, but it depends on where it is in the storyline, and then that depends on like where
he kind of
Sarah or Laura is too, because
he kind of reaches to as if he's like trying to get through.
He turns around and look. They both like walk in unison together without moving their arms towards the car, and then he turns around and looks. And what I think is really neat is that you see Cooper is like, what the fuck now? Like, I have no idea. I did what I thought. Like, I brought her to the house, and now what? And he turns around and looks at the house, and that's when he has that freak out movement and like kind of moves his hand in like a Dougie way and is like gesturing towards the house, and that's when he says, "What year is it?" And then you hear, which really cool, and you needed the subtitles to even know for sure, but they have Sarah, and as soon as he says, "What year is it?" cracks are showing with like Carrie, quote unquote, like she's like starting to freak out, and then it like you hear very distantly, but it's confirmed in the subtitles, if you have the subtitles on, that it's Sarah Palmer yelling, "Laura, Laura," but not in a screaming for Laura way. I think in the exact way she does in the pilot, which we just
in the
watched.
Morning. Yeah, come down for breakfast, right?
Like, Laura,
like that voice.
Laura. Like not like a scared
That's what
Laura
I thought
way.
it was too.
And so then when Laura / Carrie hears that's when she remembers everything.
And then
the lights go out in the house.
Yeah.
And then it has a flash.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then it goes black.
And then, she starts screaming, it goes black, and then it comes back in with her whispering to Cooper in the Black Lodge, so I love that shot. We've seen it now 3 times. We saw it in the original series where she whispers, "My father killed me." We see his reaction. And actually, if you'll remember, in the original series, when she whispers it to him, it is Cooper of 25 years.
25 years later.
Yes.
Yes.
They age him up in a funny way where he looks older than he looks now.
Right.
As they tend to do.
They didn't understand that his skin would just remain.
Colonel Hoffman's amazing, and he literally looks just amazing.
All they needed to do was put a little gray streak in his
and actually, he doesn't have that. Like, he's just like... But
they're like, we're really gonna do it up.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. The second time that this whisper happens is in part 1, and contrary to popular belief, shuffling pages doesn't sound good on podcasts.
Oh, sorry.
No. Pat was grabbing my notebook back and forth.
I'm looking at my old notes too.
Totally good. So the second time we see Laura whisper to Dale, it's part 1 of The Return, and he kind of laughs. And then this time he looks super, super, super sad as the rolling credits.
Yeah.
So I love that like this moment keeps happening in perpetuity in infinity. So that brings up Nate, Tibetan Theory, which you have for us.
Oh yeah, no, I just saw, I know, oh man, and I wish I had actually referenced it before the call, whatever that theory is, but it does relate to...
this a call.
I know, because it's work.
Because you're in a conference call right now.
Oh,
it's a podcast.
That is pretty funny.
It's a podcast.
Yeah,
it's true.
Before this call, I really should have taken a little more notes and gotten that information down.
I get it. Continue.
But there is something, and Lynch likes all of that, right? So he does.
TM.
Mm-hmm.
Tibetan.
And there's the theory behind sort of like a light and dark version of what would be the universe, and then that there would be multiple universes inside of that, and I guess it's just interesting. And I don't know if, way back when they, first started this religion, if they understood the concept or if it just seems so before its time, and it's so strange to think about.
Well, if you look at the symbols that they show us in the Return, we know that works with the White Lodge, Black Lodge, and then the symbol of White Lodge, Black Lodge, which is kind of bastardized in the Return with the bigger diamond and the little pointy ears.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But then they turn it into the infinity symbol and have that little dot going round and round, which is the infinite possibilities. And that's what I took away from this is this infinite possibilities. But the sad thing that I feel, and this is where that Dark Tower reference really comes in, is I feel what Laura says to Cooper at the end is, "You'll never save me." That he's going to be doomed to just repeat this Groundhog Day of
keep searching for
trying to save Laura and trying to make this town whole and make everything right, and it's just never going to happen. Hence her disappearing from him every time he
tries to save her,
look at her. Which is whenever he confronts the reality of his situation, she disappears. I just see, as much as I would love to think there's this reality where all of our favorite characters are happy and having a great happy life, I think it's far more likely that Cooper is going to repeat this over and over and over again.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
That's the point of it.
That would be cool, I think.
And that's why you really couldn't have another season, because we know now that there are infinite possibilities, so exploring any one of them wouldn't matter because nothing matters since everything matters.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably the TM.
Oh, one other possibility I found is that this could just be all part of a Talking Heads song.
Oh yeah.
Or a Talking Heads song called "Found a Job," I believe. He talks about Judy and Bob.
Bob and Judy.
Judy creating a television. Be like Bob and Judy. They get tired of watching the same old stuff on TV, so they create their own.
We might be better off acting.
They create their own TV show.
Well, what do you think? I mean, what do you think Bob?
Agreed.
What do you think Bob wanted with Judy? I mean, because you do feel like in episode 17, he's looking for Judy, right? And then Judy wants Sarah.
I think Bob just keeps upgrading.
He wants to find
power
Mother
and evil levels. Because if you think about it, Leland as a vessel was an attorney who was a prominent figure in a small town. Dale Cooper is an FBI agent who's got a considerable higher focus. But I could see Bob being well, that's great, but we can go higher than this. So I think he's just it's a whatever that insect is that gets just bigger and bigger shells and just sheds their shell and gets to a bigger one.
Okay, yeah.
He's just trying to get up to
right.
Probably, yeah. I'm not big on
crustacean
knowledge.
Crustaceans really freak the fuck out of me. I do not like a crustacean.
They're delicious, though.
Yes, I will eat them. I will not pull them out of their shells. I don't know how to do that. It's one of the things.
I mean, but they just keep getting bigger and bigger.
He wanted to go into Laura too originally.
Well, because he saw the potential in Laura that she could end up being, whatever. So I think
the fireman's.
Yeah, I think he was okay, I've been with Dale for enough time, so.
He was almost trying to get back into the real Dale when he was taken out of Doppelganger.
I thought at the very end they should have him just crawl into Trump and then just
probably. Now we know where Judy's at.
Now
just
we know where
Judy's
at.
Yeah.
That's the big reveal.
I don't know. I also do wish a little bit they had found ways to feature Leland a little bit more. I love Leland.
That's true. If he had a little bit more,
he's so great. Cool. Yeah.
But he was dead, and he's in the Black Lodge.
I know, and yes. I think looking back, I'll look at The Return, and it does feel so different from original Twin Peaks, but it is really good in its own right. And I think if you watch it as a whole, it'll be really great. But you just can't really look at it. It's a continuation in a very different vein.
Yeah.
In the way that, like, Harry Potter went from being a children's series to being, like, pretty dark.
Yeah.
You know, like, things kind of darken and mature in age over time, and Twin Peaks definitely did. Like, I think there was a purposeful de-quirkifying that happened, and I'm okay with it, personally.
He probably took the criticisms of, like, season 2 after Leland died. Between Leland dying and the last episode, he probably took
all the subtle racism that was happening.
He probably definitely took that criticism. Well, he wasn't really during those episodes. He wasn't really on the show.
It was mostly Dwayne.
Yes.
Dwayne
to
Dunham.
your point, Melissa, like, about the caring more about relationships, I'm the same way. And one of the really good things about Twin Peaks, the original series, is because there probably were about 10 too many episodes, the only thing to really focus on were the characters. Like, and sometimes they had zero plot. You didn't really care about anything. But it was like, okay, well, it's all these characters we love.
There was a lot of Nadine and Mike.
Yeah.
Things started to root for Nadine at
you're
some
like,
point.
oh, I'm into it. Yeah, this couple's like my
first you're like, this is just a little bit too much. And then you're like, you go, Nadine.
Right.
You go.
It's true.
You be you and enjoy it.
It's true. You'd come to love Nadine. So, okay, I guess, so we're kind of closing down the podcast here, but so Nadine brings up a good kind of closer question. Are there characters that, like, Melissa, you were kind of totally new to this universe.
Sure.
And what I love about Melissa's journey that you listeners maybe haven't totally picked up on is she went from, like, someone who knew nothing about Twin Peaks to now she's reading a book by Mark Frost. She's got Twin Peaks prints in her apartments. Like,
sure.
Just
I have a theme now.
A legit fan.
And it's also a reflection of this podcast and how much I've enjoyed it over the time.
Yes. It's like, it's like being in the double R. But what of your original impressions of Twin Peaks do you remember that now you're like, oh, I was wrong, or like, oh, I can't believe I thought that, or...
Because before we decided to embark on this adventure, I did try and watch it by myself, like, because I'm one of those that's like, people say, like, this is really good, and, like, there's a whole cult following, so I guess I'll try it, and I tried it, and I was like, this is a little slow, it's a little weird.
And that was when it was fast.
Yeah.
It got
and
slower.
it's going off on tangents, so it was like, the first episode didn't hook me at all.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm really big on, like, I really love pilots, and I love when a pilot can really, like,
this pilot
get you.
is one of the best. I think it's so good.
I think it's
but
a great
it was
pilot,
like,
but yeah, I see
it
what
was
you mean,
a
like,
fine
pilots
one,
need
but,
to
like,
help you,
I couldn't, like, it was so, because it was one of those where you're like, I really need to sit and pay attention. I think by doing this podcast and by having to be as in depth, it really helps you appreciate the show a lot more than if you, because instead of just having it on as background noise. Like, it's not one of those that you can casually watch. Because I've said to friends who are very much, they don't have the attention span to really sit and, like, kind of absorb.
Casual watchers.
And it's changed how I view television now, too. Because, like, I enjoy now the shows that are a little more deeper. Or, like, I sit and I watch it and I go, that's a really interesting plot point.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, while I'm like, oh, I'll just put on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt while I'm working from home.
Right.
Because it's something I can just have on in the background. I don't really need to pay attention to it.
Right.
But, like, if I have to focus on anything, it's like... And that was a big thing, where it was like I wasn't in the mood to focus. And I was like, well, I've never seen it. But now I do enjoy it. I have such respect for Kyle MacLachlan now.
Oh, my God.
Because he was just, in my eyes, when I started this, Trey from Sex and the City, where he plays a completely different... vibe. Like, he's a very good actor, and, like, the mayor from Portlandia, but still, he was always Trey from Sex and the City to me.
I just think there's nothing he can't do.
No,
he can do anything.
He's I'm surprised he's not a bigger actor than what he is.
He's Muad'Dib.
I know. I always think he's Paul Atreides. I still like that's him
Dune.
to me.
So
and that movie was such a flop, but I just
it was great,
so
though.
for me
I loved it.
so iconic. And
I know, I loved it.
That giant hair he had in it.
Yeah. That was his first David Lynch. He's like a little baby in that. Yeah. I mean, he's like, he always
that was already
face,
like 6 years before Twin Peaks.
Oh my God, he's such a baby.
So he was, very young.
What about you, Nate? I know you kind of joined us like a little bit late in the journey, but anything for you change in your perception of Twin Peaks because of doing the podcast, or you've always had the same feel about it?
Well, I just think that it transitioned into something that was a lot more universal than it was sort of like the story changed, right? Because the earlier seasons, while there was, like you said, it became a different story. I think that, Return to Twin Peaks, they did Return to Twin Peaks, but it wasn't really about Twin Peaks anymore.
No.
And it sort of made me think that, it did end Bob's story.
Yes.
But it kind of showed us that there's still a greater evil. And I feel like you were saying with Coop, sort of in this endless cycle.
Yeah.
And it sort of makes me think that, evil is prevalent in the world and evil tends to win a lot.
Yeah.
But there's always somebody who's going to be fighting. There's always somebody who's going to be trying to fight for good. Right.
Puts out the fires.
So I guess they probably didn't kill two birds with one stone. Was that what they were?
Right. It was Remember 4:30, Richard and Linda, two birds with one stone. Was the first thing the giant said in part 1.
He says two birds with one stone as well?
He did. Yep.
Yeah.
And then Gordon says that, or Coop says that to Gordon or something. Okay.
What about you, Pat? What has changed for you with your experience with Twin Peaks since doing the podcast?
Since doing the podcast?
Yeah. Well, we're just in your journey in general. What's changed? I mean, I know
you've had a longer
journey.
I was eager to watch it originally because you recommended it, and I knew about it. Well, I only knew about it.
He wanted to get in my pants, so he was willing to watch whatever.
Success.
That's true.
Yes.
But I knew, there were references in The Simpsons to Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes.
That was a big...
I would like to see The Simpsons episode.
Oh, my God, yes, they do.
There's 5 episodes.
Homer goes, this is cuckoo. He just, makes fun of it.
Yeah.
Because there's, the horse, they're in the red room, he's like, what does this mean? Or, someone goes... brilliant, and then Homer goes, this is crazy. It's making fun of it. Totally.
But one of I think the first episode where they reference it is when Chief Wiggum is dreaming about who shot Mr. Burns.
Right,
Burns his suit. And then, Lisa is talking.
His backwards speak.
He's doing the backwards speak. So.
It's in the zeitgeist quite a bit more. I mean, people will say, damn fine coffee and not know that they're talking about Twin Peaks. I mean, it's in the zeitgeist quite a bit.
Yeah, but then...
But doing the podcast...
It's, there's just a lot of details. And the original series was easier because I'd already seen it a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
So the return was a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I knew it was going to be more like Mulholland Drive than the original.
Right, because we knew it was going to be all David Lynch.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
It was... I expected the unexpected, and that's kind of what we got. So.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he would have gone this route, if they had continued to give him freedom, if it would have been more along this line, and would the show have been more successful in its second season?
I think it probably would have been. But I think it couldn't have gotten too much like this to be in a way. What was successful about original Twin Peaks is clearly not all David Lynch. I mean, clearly, some of the editing voices in his life are helpful voices.
Editing voices are always good to have.
Yeah, that are that's brilliant, but what if we toned it down 17 notches?
Right.
And then you really get something great. And so I think I actually, what I've kind of taken from The Return, in a weird way, on one side, I have a deeper level than ever of love and respect for David Lynch and his work, and I think he's the greatest sound designer in the world, which is not what he's known for, but I think he did a brilliant job with that. I mean, his musical choices, his where he infuses electricity and the cricket noises and all that. I mean, it's beautiful. He does an amazing job there. I think he's really brilliant in weaving together details. But I also see how much other people helped him to edit and scale back and be a little bit more thoughtful at times that he probably could have used a little help from. I love original Twin Peaks and The Return equally in different ways. I will say that. Like, I will look back and be like, love The Return, love original Twin Peaks in totally different ways, as though they're almost two different series.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
I agree.
Like, I do see the need for people, artists, you need your friends to say, like, hey, bud, maybe pull that back a bit. Like, we all need that friend.
This is great, but
right.
you know what will sell?
Awesome idea. Let's just do, like,
as the
half of that.
Yeah. Right.
You know, like, you just need that friend, that person. I also think The Return has a richness that the original Twin Peaks doesn't have because of this having actors who are more mature actors that weren't in Hollywood like as deeply in their careers. Like, it's really been neat to see naturally aged people and people who are a family, like they've all worked together and they know each other and they're all invested in this in a different level. It added a level that I think was, you just won't have that anywhere else. Like, when you see Cheryl Lee and Kyle MacLachlan doing a scene together, there's history there that you just won't have unless it's, you know, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. You won't have that kind of thing of like that history and that depth of color and richness. And I love seeing older, normal looking people. I think it's great.
Yeah, it was great.
Like, TV should look, we want TV to look more like us and more like the way people really look. And I loved that. So totally happy with that. Final thoughts. I want to get favorite moment, original Twin Peaks, and The Return from everyone.
Prep us for
I know, but we can edit, so it's fine, you know. But or just throw it out. Just
in either
series
or in The
favorite
Return?
moments, either series. Favorite moments.
I liked in The Return the
Moments that stick out.
Yeah, in The Return, the first episode when Jude comes into the box and then breaks the box and then eats the couple's face.
You like that weirdly dark scene?
Well, it was just, it stands
the dark
out.
side. I don't know if you knew this.
I don't think I did.
I mean, it was just so
it was intense.
Weird and different and
Yep, that was a good one.
mysterious.
It told you what, we're not messing around
I guess
here.
my least favorite of The Return was Freddy like boxing Bob to death.
Yeah. Seemed a
I
little
just-
It was a little
juvenile.
Mario Brothers.
I liked Freddy.
Me too, but
And the whole glove thing was funny, and then, but I don't know if I love that that's how they killed Bob, the entity.
no.
I don't know.
I think one of my favorite scenes is now I'm drawing a blank. Andy and Lucy. I kept wanting to say Suzanne for some reason. I think one of my favorite scenes is the scene which is all that tension leading up to Dark Coop in the sheriff's office and Lucy jumping out and shooting him and not knowing.
Good.
That was
it was very unexpected and satisfying.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's a great moment.
I think that this series, two things I really loved. I loved the Bang Bang Bar. I thought, and it's funny because I remember criticism initially about the Bang Bang Bar and how it was used, but I think it was always used brilliantly in a really cool way. The musical guests were amazing. The look of it was amazing. The dialogue in every Bang Bang Bar scene was great. But beyond that, what I loved was character entrances in this series were so strong. Like, I loved Evil Cooper's entrance with American Woman by Muddy Magnolia, I think is the band playing. I loved Richard Horne's entrance by the no smoking sign smoking. I love Diane's first entrance where she just turns around at the bar. I thought they framed character entrances really well. Audrey's first entrance, she's just got that red coat. I thought they really framed setups of characters really well. On the Bang Bang Bar, I thought was excellently used. I loved that whole thing. I wish we could have gotten one piece of closure in that area. Just like we had this whole theory as podcasters about certain Bang Bang Bar scenes were real and certain ones were not real.
Go back. That's one thing we got to go back.
But
I agree. You could figure it out.
Any scene where the MC was present in the Bang Bang Bar was probably not real
because it was always he was introducing someone famous or fucking James,
right, or Audrey,
right,
or Audrey.
So it was either. And that doesn't seem
right. Like you don't have literally Eddie Vedder and Audrey Horne on the same night.
And James was not performing.
Right. Well, and then we see with Audrey that it wasn't real for her. So that means that Eddie Vedder was he also not real. So
exactly. He
I thought that was so cool, and I love a good musical. I love the way music is used in a scene. So I thought The Return did that even better than original Twin Peaks.
It did a great job of... the original does a great job of putting Julie Cruz songs.
Yes,
in there.
Right.
Yeah, so that was probably my peak moment. What about you, Melissa?
I don't know. I can't think of one.
That's okay.
I wish you would have prepared me.
I'm sorry. I thought of it off the cuff.
Such things because there's a lot of things. It's just the feeling I have with the characters, and in the original it's the Coop and it's the Coop and Harry. Mm-hmm. It's just
love.
Yeah, it's that freshness, and it's not necessarily the murder mystery-ness of it all, but it's the characters that we see and how they develop into friendships and where you trust them wholeheartedly. Yeah. The Return was a little bit darker. It was a little bit more
they were older.
Cosmic too, where it was at a different plane than what we were used to. I do think that Lucy shooting Bad Coop is just a very nice ending to everything, but I hate that James had so much FaceTime.
Great Shelley and Norma stuff.
It was, but there wasn't enough of it.
I know.
I needed just
would have loved to see Gordon and Shelley interact. I know that's just a wish list thing, but man, that would have been so great. And I can't believe that he didn't do it because he loves her so much. Right. Ed and Norma. Okay, yeah, come on, that was absolutely a beautiful, awesome moment.
It was. Those were the moments that at the end you felt like weren't really what he wanted to do so much. I mean, he gave these characters sort of closure, which I guess not everybody has closure in real life, right? So Shelley and her broken home and the awful man that she's gonna end up with, I guess, right?
Or until she ends up with another awful man. But and I agree, not everything should have closure, but it's nice when you see a payoff, and you get... And even the Ed and Nadine scene I thought was really great and really optimistic to see someone being like, I'm letting you go for good reasons. And, there was a lot of, good use of older actors. They just have a little bit more experience and they've softened and let things go. And everyone did such an awesome job. I mean... Ben Horne, I thought all of his scenes were beautiful with Beverly, and the tone, and he just did an awesome job. Eamon Farron, newcomer to me at least, awesome star to look out for. Such a little shit, Paul.
Such a little shit.
So good.
Have to give me the character name?
He was Richard Horne.
Such a vicious...
So interesting, though. What a cool casting choice, too, that he wasn't a big dude. He was just this little hipster.
Punk,
Yeah, so just so many great things. It's almost like I think Twin Peaks has spoiled me for regular TV that's so fast-paced that now I'm like, whoa, slow down. Where's my TM scene of trees?
And it's hard to watch, like, normal television where you're not like, so does that mean anything?
Right, because it doesn't.
The address, like, do you think that symbolizes something?
Yeah, it's not number theory. All right.
So many numbers.
But at least we can cancel that out.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
it's going to be hard.
You can disprove that theory.
In and of itself.
The
like,
numbers,
all of our theories,
they did mean things.
They did mean things, but we just don't
have the
what.
Right.
Same with portals. Portals were our other big theory, and there definitely were lots of
And the numbers
portals.
of the portals mean something.
Right.
So it's all means something.
You just have to be some parallel universe hopping celestial being.
True.
A Dugpas or
Douglas,
a good Dugpas.
Dugpas, Tulpas, Doppelgangers. Let's call the whole thing off.
Say that 3 times really fast.
Giants, one-armed mans.
Oh boy. Well, it's been a real pleasure, and listeners, we'll throw out some bonus features and stuff, but we'll also be doing a podcast, has yet to be named, on Star Trek The Next Generation. Coming up soon. I'm doing a podcast on the Boxcar Children with some coworkers coming up soon.
Weird.
It's real weird, but thank you so much to Melissa and Nate and Patrick, my husband.
And Kelly for doing a bunch of the editing and getting a microphone and making us feel legit and learning things.
You know, we're always learning. And thank you, listeners. We have really, really enjoyed doing this, and we appreciate it. And if there is a season 4, we'll be back at you. But meanwhile,